everyone, and welcome back to the Horror Cult Films podcast. I'm David Smith, and tonight I'm joined by the Dream Team, Misters Jim Lamming and Ross Hughes. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
And this time we're coming in live from Haddonfield to talk about the Halloween franchise. When John Carpenter made his super low budget horror about a masked man killing babysitters, he couldn't have predicted it'd lead to 11 more and kickstart a whole subgenre. No, Halloween was not the first slasher, yet it was the most important, setting a template for countless iterations to follow, countless imitators. Among other things, we'll be discussing his first flick, the series highs and lows, the 2018 reboot, and then Michael's latest outing, the terribly named Halloween Kills. And frankly, I can't wait to see what these guys made of it because we've been keeping ourselves quiet for the last week. But first of all, it's not just been Halloween films. Ross, what else have you been watching?
Well, it's been a while since I last done a podcast, so I think I probably watched 40 films since then. Recently, I probably caught up on a lot of the Shudder films. The Toll, which is a ghost story, which was pretty decent, I gotta be honest with you. And the Boy Behind the Door was pretty good as well. But over the last weekend, I've been binge watching TV shows, and You season 3 is out, which technically is horror. I don't think you've seen it yet, David, have you?
Oh, I've seen the first 2 seasons and really enjoyed it. Is it still quite Dexterish?
It's very, very Dexterish. And the season 3, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but season 3 is just as good. I just love the character, Joe. There's something seriously wrong with this lad. And so I've been watching that as well. And I've just finished watching Dr. Death, which is a true life story starring Joshua Jackson, Alec Baldwin, and Christopher Slater, which is always dependable. But as for films, I've been saving myself for Halloween Kills, which we'll talk about later.
And what about yourself, Jim? You've been watching much good?
A lot of Halloween films, again. We'll touch upon that soon enough. Netflix just dropped a lot of them, so I hadn't seen some of the sequels, so I was quite thrilled about that. So I went through a few of them, which we'll discuss. The David Lynch version of Dune was shown a few weeks back at the cinemas, so there was no way I was passing up on that. Obviously, you've got the Denis Villeneuve film imminent, but the Lynch one, I've always been a fan of myself. Now, up until I last saw it, I always thought it was probably, his least recognizable film. You would say it's not necessarily got any of his hallmarks. I must have been on something, because when I watched it last at the cinema, it was, it couldn't have been any more David Lynch. I mean, one of the scenes had a cat sellotaped to a rat, which one of the characters had to milk in order to not die. So, I don't know what I was thinking there, but it was incredible. I mean, a lot of people say that film's terrible, but I loved it. It's one of the best experiences at the cinema I've ever had. It was just absolutely crackers, and I loved every minute of it.
So you're looking forward to the new one?
Less after watching that, actually, because as soon as it finished, because they showed the trailer before the Lynch version of the new one, and I just, how do you follow that? It's got to be something completely different. I have heard it is very different to what a lot of people are expecting, but I don't know. I'm guessing it's a different beast entirely. Speaking of Denis Villeneuve, I watched Blade Runner 2049 the other day as well, which is cracking. I think you were watching it as well, David, which got me in a mood for it. So
yeah,
it's just big pondering sci-fi. Everything just comes across as massive on there. You got the bold colours, and it just goes on forever. And it's my kind of sci-fi.
I genuinely preferred it to the original one. I thought, okay, so we managed to get a bit more world building in it, and I thought there was just more story, really. The first movie is great, don't get me wrong, some fantastic designs, really solid acting, great concept. However, most of the second half of the first movie is like a chase sequence, and I just found the quest a little bit more compelling this time around.
Yeah, I don't think there was a wasted actor in that film either.
No.
Everyone was just on the top of their game. Even Harrison Ford, who, you know, at this point normally just turns up for the paycheck, doesn't he? Even he was great in that. And yeah, you just can't fault the film. It's a perfect film.
And that soundtrack, Howard Shore, I believe, did it, right?
Blade Runner.
Yeah, 2049.
No, it's Hans Zimmer.
Oh, shit. Okay, yes, Hans Zimmer. Yes, okay. Getting my composers mixed up. That was a really interesting soundtrack because something we didn't have in it was there wasn't like the kind of big dynamic dun 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 during the fight scenes. You know, it kept this ambience all the way through it, and it just added so much to the atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely more in keeping with the original film as well, with the whole synth sound, and just the whole third act. The hairs on the back of my neck were on end. Just the music and the visuals and everything just worked perfectly. It was incredible.
Ross, are you a fan of Blade Runner or Blade Runner 2049?
I haven't seen the second one. I tried watching it, couldn't get into it. Same as Doom, I tried watching David Lynch, that film, many times. But I'm a guy who doesn't like Lord of the Rings. So I put my hands up.
Well, when we start our fantasy cult films podcast, you're not allowed.
No.
Anything else you've been watching, Jim?
I saw the new Ridley Scott film as well, The Last Duel. That was very good. Probably about half an hour too long, in my opinion. It's basically the story of a French knight whose wife is raped by one of his friends or one of his fellow soldiers. And it tells you the story from each perspective of those involved. So you see a lot of repetition in there. And while some of it is necessary, some of it's just something as basic as a mannerism that's, you know, been seen from three different points of view. So it does drag on a bit, but again, like, it's one of them films where the best thing about it is the people in it, the sets, and just the wardrobe and costume. It's you know, really, really well made. But as I say, about half an hour too long.
It's flopped, haven't it, somehow? It hasn't done that well at the box office at all.
Apparently, but I must have been all right around here because when I went, it was packed.
I think those kind of films are not in the limelight at the moment. You know, it's not a superhero film. You know, it's not a Marvel or DC. I think it's going to get a bit lost in the market.
I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of period films anyway, and I only went because everything else was too busy. But I still enjoyed it. It was a good film.
Oh, I love a bit of Braveheart.
It's the only Scott in the group. I genuinely hate Braveheart.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely fucking hate Braveheart. I'll tell you
Freedom!
Like, some of this, the idea that, okay, so all the descendants of the English throne are also descendants of Wallace, is what they put forward in it. And also, William Wallace is the son of a nobleman. He grew up in a castle. He didn't grow up in some little village there. And the way that they bring in this sort of shite about, like, I just want to grow crops and, God willing, raise a family. It's a kind of noble savage thing we're trying to do. It just, it irritated me so much. For, like, he's a perfect human being, you know, man of love, man of war, that sort of thing. Absolutely hated Braveheart. Absolutely fucking hated it.
It's Mel Gibson being Scottish in a kilt. What more do you need?
On The Last Duel, by the way, the thing I've heard about it is it's sort of like a medieval Me Too film, essentially, isn't it? Because, like, I've heard that that's what the sort of the big USP for it is, that they're saying, okay, well, we're doing a movie that's about today's tensions, but applying them to a period drama, where, don't get me wrong, you know, these issues still would have been relatively common, but it's focusing on the who believes the woman aspect of it.
Yeah. And the dueling question is basically to determine who is, you know, in the right at the end of it all, because it's all God's will. But
the idea of a trial by combat, where if you beat someone, then it means that they were lying.
Yeah. Like, so everyone's life is on the line in this film, especially in, the finale, which personally I thought went on a bit too much. It was impressively made, but, you know, it dragged that out a little bit. But yeah, a lot of I'd say the latter half of the film is told from Jodie Comer's character. And hers is the best part as well. She is incredible in that film. And a lot of the people, I mean, it's set, what, 700 years ago? And, you know, you would expect things to have progressed a lot since then, but it seems like watching some courtroom drama from about 20 years ago. the way the women are treated. It's so either things have stalled for a good few hundred years and only now starting to get somewhere, but yeah, I would, to a crass generalization would be to call it a Me Too film. Yeah.
Tell you what I've been catching recently, folks. I watched *Malignant*, which
Awesome.
it's quite a competent supernatural horror, but sort of like And then as it goes on, it just gets better and better. Like that third act is absolutely insane. I was told in advance if the film gets kind of strange as it goes on. I did not see where it was going.
I absolutely adored it, David. It's one of my favorite films. It's my top 3 of the year. It's just so batshit crazy. I mean, no spoilers, obviously, but that twist, oh my God. I don't think anyone. I think John saw it come in on our website. You know, he did say he saw it come in. I don't know how. I was just flabbergasted. It's just mental. It's probably Juan's best film.
Oh, I didn't go that far.
Oh, come on! It's just
it's a great film.
There's nothing like it out there. There's nothing. It's like a comic strip in some angles. You know,
that's absolutely true. It's definitely his most distinctive film.
Yes.
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say I saw it coming. I kind of got what was happening, but the way it happened was, I was floored. It was incredible. I just could not believe what I was watching. The opening was brilliant, really schlocky and over the top. So that kind of sets up for what's going to happen. But then it kind of just goes into generic horror for a little while. There's a few tense moments build up and so on, but then bang, and it's just
it felt a bit like in the midsection. It felt a bit like, okay, the studio said to him, "Can you make something that's a bit like Insidious?" And then he's like, "Okay, that's me done my ghost film. Now we're doing this."
Yeah.
I think it was done on purpose, or in some ways. I mean, even the beginning, the opening to 10 minutes is so good, but the acting's awful. But I think it's like the acting's done on purpose. And you're thinking, oh, this is going to be cheesy. You know, this is going to be a stupid, dumb film. And then, as you said, and then he turns into Insidious, which probably sells out to the horror market a bit. So it sucks people in. Because I was thinking, oh, this is a ghost story or something. And then, of course, they just turned on its head. And by a knife swept in. I don't think I've had that much fun in the cinema throughout 2021, I got to be honest with you, and I doubt towards the end as well.
I'll tell you another film I watched, which I thought was really promising up until the ending. So kind of obviously the opposite. Did either of you guys see The Night House?
I haven't seen it yet.
Not yet, no.
It's, without going into anything specific, it sets up a really, really intriguing mystery. And then the answer we get is so fucking stupid that like I just no. And like it was one of those kind of very neat endings. You've got so many different threads, and they had to find a way of connecting them all. And I'm not sure that the explanation they gave made character sense. And it also kind of hints at a whole different. A whole darker side of it that doesn't go explored at all, but I'll say no more. I don't wish to spoil it.
Can I ask you one thing, though?
Yeah.
Is it as stupid as getting a mob and spending all night in a hospital while the killer is walking the streets? Is it as stupid as that? Just yes or no?
Can't think what film you're thinking of. Okay, genuinely yes, it is stupider than that. Now, what have the other ones you've seen? I saw the second Venom film, Let There Be Carnage. I had a really good time with this one. Relatively well acted, you know, it was really funny. They big up the comedic elements, the pacing of it's nice. The main thing that it didn't have going for it was there's very little Venom in Carnage. Like, you know the scene with the cathedral that you see in all the adverts? That happens right in the third act.
Yeah.
So you don't have the typical, you know, here's the second act of the hero and the villain fight, the hero gets his ass kicked and goes, I'll try harder. You don't get that. But at the same time, the first two acts where they treat it almost like a breakup film between Eddie and Venom, it's just really well done. Many Saints of Newark. You guys see that?
Yes.
What do you think?
It's worthy. It's probably now. Obviously, I'm a massive fan of Breaking Bad. You know,
You mean of Sopranos?
yes, yeah. I've lost my chain of thought now. Carry on, David. I'm laughing at myself now. Carry on.
So, Many Saints of New York, I thought it was a really interesting origin story. I liked that we get to see some of the mythology they talk about in the show. They characterize Dickie Moltisanti. And I also like that the golden age of the mafia is still a little bit shit in it. No one's having a good time here. I really liked some of the performances. The guy playing Uncle Junior, guy playing Silvio. I don't think the timeline really makes any sense. Like Silvio looks far too old for a guy that's meant to have been coming in at the same time as Tony. The bit where Tony holds the baby Christopher, despite this in dialogue that he's 9 years older, and there it's played by the son. But that being said, Michael Gandolfini was just sensational in it.
Yeah, he was. His father would have been proud. His father would have been very proud.
Absolutely.
As I was saying, when I mentioned Breaking Bad just now, before I started laughing, I mean, I think they done that spin, not Better Call Saul, the prequel. They done the Jesse story, that one, and you didn't think, well, it was a bit pointless, but at least with the Sopranos story, it was a story worth telling. I did enjoy it, and in some ways I was gutted that I think it'd be more better as a TV show, because I think they got a lot more to explore it than a 2-hour film or however the running time was.
Yeah, because David Chase has apparently signed a 5-year deal now with HBO Max, so they are looking to develop a prequel series. I think there's a lot of rich material there, presumably connecting the dots from where Tony is emotionally at the end of this, and how he becomes a Tony from Series 1.
Yes.
I think Michael Gandolfini said he's open to doing one more, so if that extends to a mini-series, brilliant. All the way through it, the main thing I was wanting to see was just more of the characters we've come to know and love. Like, I want to see Ralphie, the Future Mana card game that they built up. I want to see Richie Aprile with the jacket. I wanted to see this more of his transition from Livia. How we see probably the last good bits of Livia in the Many Saints of Newark, and then we've got her. I won't say what she does, but one of the things we've been led to believe about Dickie, it appears that she's the person who began the rumor, and I just thought it was such a nice mixture of fan service and also just being a really good gangster film in its own right. I know a lot of people hate it. Fucking disagree with them.
You can't. It's a bit like what we're going to talk about the Halloween films. The Sopranos is such an iconic TV show. You're not going to please the entire fan base. If it's just 30% of the people are happy with what they saw, then David Chase has done his job.
And last one I want to mention here is this fantastic little sci-fi film I saw at Fright Fest called Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes. It's like it really brings in the magic of cinema, right? This whole film is one shot long, but all the way through it, you're going to be saying, how the fuck did they do that? Because you've got this one shot long film where you've got the characters using this. The plot of this basically, this character finds that a monitor in his bedroom and a monitor in his workplace appear to be connected to each other. So he can speak to himself in 2 minutes into the future from his room. And the way that it plays with this by creating lots of different paradoxes, it's really funny. Like, it just explores the hell out of the situations. It gets more and more complicated with more people getting involved. But the camera just follows the one version of this guy. So you've got him filming both parts of the equation in the same shot. And then you've got all these other characters coming in who will be acting out a scene which they're then watching unfold downstairs, but then they're speaking to themselves in the scene that we just watched them film. And it's just one of the most funny, inventive, frankly, amazing to look at films I've watched in a long time.
What's the title again?
Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes.
Sounds like my sex life.
That was the best film I saw at Fright Fest.
Sorry. Can we talk about one thing before we move on to Halloween?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just add this onto the list? The Scream 5 trailer. I need to ask your opinion.
Okay. Last one I want to mention before Scream 5.
Sorry, David.
It's okay. Last thing I want to mention before Scream 5, Hotel Poseidon, the really immersive, such a good example of building a fantastic looking set and making the location a character. It's a little Dutch black comedy, and it's so, as you watch it, you just want to have a shower. It's just so nasty to look at. The kind of degradation that's going on in this building and the characters that live in it. I thought it was brilliant. So
Was it
Hotel Poseidon.
True Life thing? True Life or?
No. It's a black comedy horror film. Showed at Fright Fest, and I believe it showed at Grimfest.
Oh, right.
So very worth seeing. Anyway, Scream 5. Yes. What did you think of that trailer?
I was angry when I first watched it. Then I watched it again. Then I watched it again. And then I watched it again. And I think, and I hope they have, I reckon these guys, of course, who've done the fantastic Ready or Not, is it?
Yep.
I'm hoping it's a misleading trailer and there's a lot of fake scenes in that. If it's not, then I don't like the look of it. But I'm hoping they played a good game with us and, it's not what we're going to see.
Fair dues. I think I broadly agree with that. Like, when I was watching the trailer, I was kind of hyped starting it, the phone ringing, I was like, ooh. But, yeah, I just sort of thought,
The text says it was old hat. There was nothing there which blew me away. I mean, I saw the Scream 4 trailer when it came out in 2010, and I was already sucked into the world. I was thinking, yeah, the guys are back, but I didn't get that feeling of excitement whatsoever. I think I think it's building to something. I think the biggest clue of where we're heading is it's Scream. It's got a tagline. It's always someone you know. So I think that for us is the biggest clue of where this might be heading. That's the thing I come from it, because it's such highlighted. It's always someone you know, and it's such a weird tagline to put next to Scream. So that's just my theory.
I guess that's kind of playing up to the whodunit angle. I mean, my main hope for this one, have they confirmed this isn't going to be written as the last one, is it? Like, I assume there's going to be open.
Well, even if they says the last one in 10 years' time, we probably have a remake or reboot or Scream Kills or something, But if you look carefully at the trailer, and I'm sorry it's spoiling, it's just a theory. I actually think, if you look at it carefully, I think Dewey's the one that dies at the beginning.
That would be cool, because they kept a bit like a certain film we'll be talking about later on. I think a problem with this is they keep all the characters alive. And yet we need to get a sense of how dangerous the people with the Ghostface mask can be.
Yeah.
For me, the last one was number 4. I've said during the podcast about it, I would have ended it with Sidney being dead. They didn't. Sidney's coming back. They kill off Dewey. That could be good as well.
Jim, what did you think?
I'm pretty much with you. I think a lot of it was a red herring, or it was edited in such a way to throw you off as to, who's getting killed and what and so on. But yeah, I think it'd be a good all bets are off sort of thing if one of the big cast members does go quite early on, because that just goes to show anyone could go.
This reminds me, Ross, you watched the first episode of I Know What You Did last summer, didn't you?
Yes.
Any good?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I went in with low expectations, because obviously after the Scream TV show, which was absolute disaster. I mean, I think you and I, David, are massive fans of Harper's Island, which Jim hasn't seen, by the way, audience.
In a couple of episodes, I just didn't stick with it.
Come on, Jim, it's Harper's Island, which is probably the best slasher TV show ever. But it's very, very good. I was leading into it. You could see this twist at the beginning coming a mile off in the first episode. And I was thinking, I hope that's not going to be the ending of the entire show. Do you get what I mean? Because I don't want to spoil it for you, but they setting this thing up, and I was thinking, oh, God, I think I've already worked out who the killer is. But thankfully, the twist is shown in the end of the first episode, which I thought, okay, I like this, and it's got me sucked in as well. It's totally different to the TV show. The character to the film, the characters are very likable as well. And yeah, it does bode well, I got to be honest now. And I can't wait till Friday for the next episode.
Yeah, excellent. Last thing I want to mention actually from this is, have either of you guys seen The Craft Legacy?
No.
Oh, yes, about 2 years ago when it first came out. I wish I didn't, but, I have seen it.
I was watching that recently. It's I find myself oddly compelled by it, but at the same time, it's a terrible film. It feels like the writers just went on TikTok for an afternoon and then just wrote a script of what they saw. Like, there was very little stakes. The whole first 2/3 seems to be based around, this guy, the bully, can we turn him into a feminist ally, right? And now, aside from having a little chuckle to myself, imagining certain people from our crew watching this film and getting really pissed off, it's not a particularly great piece of drama, because I'm like, okay, well, it'd be nice if this guy maybe became cooler to the girls, but at the same time, I also don't want to see him doing it out of coercion. So, like, nothing about that premise really worked for me. It was low stakes, and it was badly written, and the main plot point evolved around someone being forced to change their opinions because of a spell, and that makes up the first 2/3 of the movie. So, it's not great.
I think the best thing for that film is the tie-in to the original movie. And then when you see that tie-in and you think to yourself, then, you know what, it just reminds you how good, not how good the first one was. The first one was not the best film. It was, it born in the back of the Scream success because of Neve Campbell. And yeah, I won't watch it again.
I think something else about the first one that was interesting is they went down a kind of goth route with the characters. In this one, it's still kind of trying to do a bit of outsiderdom, but it doesn't really reinforce that these characters are outsiders. Because... so it was quite brave that they have, to my knowledge, just be one of the first horror films that's got a trans woman as a lead. At the same time, it was interesting that they never explored transphobia at all in the film. So they mention in dialogue that she's trans once, but they don't do anything else with it. Now, on one hand, you go, okay, well, that's fine. It's representation, it's normalizing as well. At the same time, part of me is also like, well, with how bluntly the first film explored discrimination, and we're meant to buy these girls don't fit in, it's interesting that this isn't why she's being picked on. In fact, we don't really get much evidence anyone's being picked on, except from this one guy we're trying to change with a spell. Like, these are the cool girls as well, they're hanging out at parties and stuff like this.
Yeah, they're not exactly outcasts, are they? Not so much as the first film, because I think, was it Campbell's? No, even Campbell's character. It was Robert Tooney's character. She was the new girl in town, didn't have any friends, and these other girls were outcasts, and they did like doing spells. So you had that kind of link there. But this film was a bit all over the shop, actually. It was a bit of a mess.
Yeah, bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the first Halloween film.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago. Michael? Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him.
All right, guys. Now, we're not going to be talking about all 12 Halloween films in order or anything. What we're going to be doing here is keeping it relatively loose for the first 10. This will probably still end up being a 7-hour episode. So let's begin with this first one. Halloween Part 1. Why is this so fucking good?
Because it's probably the most perfect horror film. What Deborah Hill and John Carpenter created in 1978 is just masterful. It looks fantastic. It's the sense of dread on every single scene lingers. It's perfectly cast. I mean, you got Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, the young Jamie, as the iconic Laurie Strode. Nick Castle. My goodness, there's no other better Michael Myers or Boogeyman. What he brings to the shape in the first film, the essence, the way he's there is absolutely brilliant. And of course, then, we got Christopher Lee, who turned down the role of Donald Pleasance, of Loomis. He turned that down. You can't imagine any other person to play Dr. Loomis and Donald Pleasance, let's be honest. It's just it's just a wonderful, wonderful film. And it does it without any gore. There's only 5 kills in the entire film. It's what you don't see that's the most scariest thing about it. This way makes this film still masterful to this day. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say and try to fool everyone and say Halloween was, the first ever slasher film. Because that's totally nonsense. I mean, you've got to look back, I think, as if you watch Black Christmas now, Bob Clocks, the guy who directed Porky's, would you believe? I mean, if you've never seen that film and you've already seen Halloween, you would think, oh my God, this film is ripping off Halloween. But that came out You know, 4 years before Halloween is released, and Black Christmas carries a lot of things that Halloween does. So then, of course, you got Psycho as well before that. You got the underrated Peeping Tom. But what Halloween is, it's the most important, influential horror film of all time. Because without this film, you wouldn't have Jason, you wouldn't have Freddy, you wouldn't have Chucky. And this is why it's such the most important movie in horror.
Yeah. In terms of its influence, it's been, it's influenced absolutely everywhere. It set the template to follow. I saw this article in Variety magazine where they're calling it like a cheap knockoff of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And you're like, well, they have one thing in common. They both are like killers with a mask. But Michael Myers is such a different kind of killer from Leatherface. With Michael Myers, there's something really creepy about the idea of the psychopath next door. There's something really creepy about this sort of force of nature that patrols the streets, that can just be hiding in your house. Michael Myers is a subtle killer. He stalks people. No disrespect to Leatherface, we don't have that there. Leatherface is kind of just running with your chainsaw whirring. I don't think Leatherface is more like a guard dog. I don't think Leatherface really knows what he's doing. With Halloween, I think you've got this combination of a quite cerebral killer, the sort of setting where you don't think bad things are going to happen, and just these kind of young characters that just want to kind of celebrate the festival. And I think it just comes together with this nice sort of minimalist stock and slash. I reckon it's brilliant. I think there are some issues I have with it. The main one that I've never liked is the geography of Haddonfield. Doesn't make any sense to me because we know that for Laurie to drive to Tommy Doyle's house, and we see it going from day to night as she does so. We also know that she lives around the corner from the Myers house. So does it make any sense to me that Donald Pleasance, Loomis can be hovering around outside the Myers house, see the car, and that somehow brings him to the Doyle house? You're like, she seemed to drive for quite a while to get there. I don't think that Loomis is going to stumble across this ice. Speaking of stumbling across ices, we'll be coming to that later on as well.
Oh, God.
But yeah.
With Halloween, the original, it's such a simple premise, let's be honest. There's nothing complicated about it. I mean, you've got the fantastic opening beginning, you've got the quickest sex scene in history.
It's like 40 seconds in real time. And that's in...
How Jude is satisfied from that. I mean, she must probably spend more seconds getting undressed than he's leaving. You got that. You got the reveal of Michael in the outfit as well, and then you got, of course, the fantastic credits. And let's be honest, now you can watch a really, really bad Halloween film. Hint, hint. But when you're in that cinema and you've got that jack-o'-lantern on that big screen and that music all around you, there's nothing better in horror. I was sitting there on Friday morning and I was thinking, my God, I'm actually watching a Halloween film again. And that's the feeling you get from these kind of characters like Michael Myers, like Jason, like Freddy Krueger, but the difference with Freddy Krueger is, of course, he's the only one that doesn't wear a mask. And this is why it's so difficult now to do a Freddy film, because, soon as you do a Freddy film, everyone's going to say, well, it's not Robert Englund. So, but anyway, well, you can say anyone can play Michael, but if you just watch the original Halloween, then Nick Castle is just absolutely wonderful as the Ship. He is one of the most important parts of that movie. The way he walks, the mysterious he brings, the breathing as well. He just brings this vibe of, he is the ultimate boogeyman. You cannot argue with that. You cannot argue with that whatsoever. But it is the ultimate slasher for me.
What do you reckon, Jim? Are you big on Halloween?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's my favorite horror film, but even from a technical level, it's really impressive. You've got the Steadicam, which shows a lot of POV shots from Michael's point of view, which I believe up to that point wasn't really something that had been done in film before. So it was pretty much breaking new ground in more ways than one. And because I think they spent most of the camera budget on the newfangled Steadicam, and as I said, that it sets it from the opening scene. It's just incredible. We see everything that's going on, and then the big reveal that, oh, this is just a kid, and then you've got the slow stalking throughout the next day where Laurie's going to school, going to going home, going with friends, going to drop the keys off at the house. When we see Michael just appearing here and there from behind the hedge, driving around in the car, it just builds it up really, really well. And then you've got the final act of him stalking the babysitters at night. And again, that's done brilliantly with him just appearing in the background here and there, giving everyone, shitting everyone up. And it's just done so subtly and so well, especially the POV stuff. Couple that with Carpenter's score as well, which is really, really good for the most part. And it just all works so well together. And it's just everything they've done right. It worked excellent.
Yeah, I think that in terms of the sustained atmosphere, this feeling of dread that builds up and up, it does that really effectively. I've watched a film with some people who are younger before who found it really slow. And the thing is, it's a slow burn, but at the same time, I don't think in any way it's ever time wasted. Like it sells the characters well, it sells the characters' relationships well. And they just like this gradual growth of Michael Myers becoming more and more of a threat as it goes on. Like something that you got out of it, which you don't have at all in the new one, is that like nobody here has any concept of Michael Myers, right? Like for most of the films, people find out about Michael Myers as he kills them. And there's just something really scary about the idea that someone else could be in your house and you're unaware of it. Like when you've got the characters just like wandering around singing to themselves and things like this, unaware that they're being watched and stalked. And I think that sense of vulnerability in a place that you should feel safe, it's fantastic. And there's also something quite interesting about setting this in the kind of American suburbs. As you've got like a Vietnam War raging and stuff like that on the other side of the world previously, and you've got lots of people being sent off to die abroad. There's something quite interesting about the danger that now exists in like suburban America. Something about the idea of the place that you thought you'd feel safest, you're not. You got this guy out of the run, he's gonna stab the crap out of you. Like, and then Donald Pleasance. Oh God, I love his performance in these films. As the sequels go on and Loomis just becomes more and more unhinged, he's excellent. I'll come back to him when we talk about Halloween Kills, but I thought the characterization of this film was really good. The relatively small scale of the action was really good, and just with how relatable the source of fear was.
This was filmed in 21 days in the middle of spring, and it's John Carpenter's. It was probably, I think it was maybe his third film, or his third film. And it's just, everything's right about it. I mean, the mask itself, oh my God, it's a William Shatner mask painted white. As soon as you put on with the black eyes, as Donald Pleasance says, and he's got the black eyes, the blackest of eyes, it's kind of like Jaws. It's like a shark. As Jim quite rightly said, but there, no, it's the stalking, and this is what sets it apart from all the other sequels. I'm not even talking about David Gordon Green's latest attempts. I mean, all the sequels have followed, turn into more proper slasher, apart from maybe the original Halloween 2, in which it did keep the sort of essence of what Carpenter tried to achieve, even though it did raise the body count. But this film here, the first one, was just to get people's imagination racing. Even the end where he disappeared, you can hear his breathing. Everyone in 1978 left that cinema must be thinking, shit, where is he? Is he in my bedroom tonight? That's a perfect ending, if you think. If we never made another sequel to Halloween, everyone would be thinking, where is he?
Yeah.
You couldn't even better that ending. You couldn't.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You've got all the different shots of everywhere he's been with just that heavy breathing over it and the music. And it really, really sets a brilliant tone at the end. It's fantastic.
That's what Tommy says. You can't kill the boogeyman, and that's how it ends brilliantly. Because even if you watch Halloween, the old one, the original one, the name Michael Myers doesn't hardly get mentioned in it. We know it's Michael Myers, but even in the credits, he's called the Shape. He's just this figure of death. Really, he's the Grim Reaper. Targets his babysitters, unfortunately, on Halloween night.
An argument that I often hear people making about some of the older sorts of horror classics it's a phrase good for its time. When people, like for instance, when people were talking about some of the Hammer ones, will sort of qualify it by saying it's not necessarily so effective now, but it was really good for its time. Or sometimes about creature features. With Halloween, you don't have that. It's just simply a good film. It's still just simply one of the best that subgenre has to offer. For me, my favorite slasher films are probably the slightly cheesier ones, like Friday the 13th Part 4 is probably my favorite slasher. But at the same time, there's just something classier about the Halloween films, particularly the first one. And I think the sort of film noir kind of influence on it's really good.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, I've had arguments many times with Friday 13 fans, you know, Jason's better than Michael. And it's the most redundant argument you can think of. Because at the end of the day, and Sean Cunningham and everyone involved in Friday 13th in 1981 basically admitted they wanted to rip off Halloween. But they knew they couldn't get that essence or that scary thing. So what they done was they filled it full of blood and gore. You know, Kevin Bacon's neck in, you know, underneath the bed. It was just over the top gore, and it actually worked. And this is why the Friday 13th film with Jason is full of these kind of scenes where, because they know they couldn't copy what Halloween done, so they went the next step, and of course that found the audience as well. The trouble we had with the Halloween is, I mean, I'll go back to the sequels now, and not the latest films, is that by the time Michael Myers come back in Halloween 4, forget about Halloween 2 for a minute, because that basically finished the franchise there and ended it. Yeah, that H2O moment. But by the time he turned up in 1988, the slasher boom was very over anyway. I think Jason was on his way to Manhattan before Michael came back into the field. It's like he started his party, be Mister. So by the time by the time we got to Halloween 4, I mean, they themselves would jump in on the Friday 13th bandwagon and all the other films that went before it. High body count, you had to show a bit of blood. And this is why every sequel since, and it's maddening if you're a horror fan, especially a massive Halloween fan like I am, that no one director, maybe H2O with Steve Miner, you know, he probably done it more than anyone, does not catch the essence of what Halloween was, the original thing, in which was forget about the blood. Let's just make the most frightening movie ever.
Ross, would I be correct in assuming that Michael Myers is also your favorite killer?
Yes.
Why? What's so good about Michael Myers?
Because of what he is. I mean, there's just no remorse. I mean, I don't want to spoil my feelings for Halloween Kills, right? The original Halloween and Halloween 2, which because we're not doing ranking, I will say, I think Halloween 2 in the 1981 is probably the best sequel. He's a human being, a sheer willpower. You know, I get the fact about the sister angle, which was absolutely nonsense by the time we get into Halloween 2, and this is why he had the motive, because I think once you give a boogeyman the motive, the scariness goes. But he's just a human. You know, Jason's a zombie.
Yeah.
You know, by the time he comes to Jason 6, you know, Freddy, he comes in the dreams. Chucky's a fucking doll. You know, he's a good type doll who runs around. But Michael Myers is just he's either a brother, or in the later ones, he's an uncle who seriously wants to kill members of his family. When he gets to Halloween 6, he shags his niece. That's a different subplot.
Yeah.
You know, and all Halloween fans are more concerned with that in the Rob Zombie version. You got Laurie Strode Mark II fingering a bagel in front of her parents, but no one mentions that moment in Halloween 6. But in my eye, this is why Michael to me is a human being, sheer willpower, and I think Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and H2O proper catch that essence of this madman in a William Shatner mask.
What about yourself, Jim? Who's your favorite on-screen killer?
Got to be Freddy. There was a period of time where I probably watched the films over and over again. I just went through a phase of being pretty much obsessed with it. And it's still, the first one is still one I can watch over and over again, and it never fails to impress me. Again, it's as much the technical level as the story and the characters. It's just, I've always found that fascinating. You know, you can go into dreams, and obviously it gets sillier as the films go on. They try and, you know, up the ante on the way people are killed and what's happening in their dreams and so on. But yeah, it's always one that's fascinated me more than any others.
Fair dues. I mean, I think with Freddy, you've got such a good central idea there. I think with Michael Myers, he's not my favourite. I agree that the human aspect's interesting, although I sort of almost think of him as being a bit like the xenomorph from Alien. You know, he's just strategic, picks people off one by one, and the sort of the unknowableness about him is what makes him quite interesting there. Like, what turned him? Like, why did a kid suddenly do this? Is he a supernatural force? And it's almost, as you said, it's a question that gets less interesting the more that they try and answer it. However, I think my favorite ones, I prefer Jason. For Jason, I don't know that you would necessarily make a Friday the 13th film right now. I think there's something about having a killer who's written as mentally handicapped that I don't think would fly right now. At the same time, what I do like about Jason's characterization is that we kind of want to kill the kids too. So you're always on Jason's side in these sequels. Like, ignoring the first one altogether because it's not Jason that's in it. There's something about Jason as a character which just, he's kind of the underdog here. He's a kid who was abused, and he was probably abused by the sorts of kids who are now staying at the camp. Horror fans tend to be kind of outsiders a lot of the time, and I think this is something that you connect with in Jason. But I also really, really like Jigsaw. I think it's because being the youngest member of the team here, or at least because Steph's not on this podcast, being the youngest person in the team, the Saw series is the first franchise I saw every entry of at the cinema. So it's just got a special place in my heart. The iconography associated with Jigsaw is very cool. Like the pigs, the puppets, his Tobin Bell's performance, the deep voice, just brilliant.
What about the Jigsaws that followed? Apart from Tobin Bell, or it's just the character itself, what he stands for?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the other people in the Saw films, I always liked the soap opera element to it, like the Hoffman versus Jill stuff. That was always fun. But I do think the Saw films, while it's rewarding to watch them all in a row, I'm not going to pretend for a moment they're of similar quality to each other. Like the first one and the first three and the sixth one are the good ones. Also, Chucky. I'm a big fan of Chucky. I remember I met Jennifer Tilly once for an interview, and Jennifer Tilly was talking about why she enjoys Chucky as a character so much. And she said, I just love the joy that he takes in what he does. And for her, the character represents the kind of joy that fans have in horror films. Because Chucky just has a great time. He's laughing his ass off as he's killing people in a way that not even Freddy does. So I think this is something quite almost quite adorable about Chucky.
I think you answered, the question earlier when you said about, Halloween being a slow burn. And this is why, Jason's got such a massive fan base. He's probably got a bigger fan base than Michael Myers. Because the fact of the matter is, if you go into a party, you'd probably watch Jason Lives than you would Halloween. I still don't get why Randy thought it was a good idea to watch Halloween in the party and scream. It's absolutely nonsense. Halloween is like a serious horror, but with Jason, you can guarantee you're going to have fun. And I can't see more about talking about Halloween Kills. So I'll move on.
Yeah, so there's probably people sitting there going, they said they'd talk about Halloween, never talk about Jason. Well, let's return to Halloween. Could Halloween have worked as an anthology like they planned with the third one?
Oh, of course it would. Look, there's a way of looking at this. I love Halloween 3, by the way. I mean, it's probably got the best ending of the entire franchise. Even knock it off. It's absolutely fantastic. I think it could have, but of course, what affected out the take-ins as well, because I think it came out too soon, Halloween 3. I think the title was wrong for it as well, because I know they wanted the brand, but everyone going in expect to see Michael Myers and end up watching a film called Season of the Witch, which if I can remember, there's no witch in it anyway. It's about Stonehenge and this mad Irishman or something.
I love the villain in this. For me, this was a series high point. Well, obviously not. It's not as good as the original one, but for the sequels, I just thought this is definitely one of the better ones. The really dark humor in it is so distinctive. Like it goes places that you are not expecting it to go in terms of how dark it gets. So, I mean, anyone listening to this, I hope, has already seen it. But the way the film ends with loads of kids being about to die, right? And I just thought it was so out there. Like the soundtrack's really good. The kind of paranoid 80s thriller elements are really good. This bizarre relationship between Tom Atkins and the nurse that he's shagging on the side, where you're like, oh, no one wants to see these two pairing up.
Aye, Tom Atkins is a sexy mother, you know what, in this film. Everyone wants to be Tom Atkins in this film, let me tell you.
He's a guy all the guys want to be and all the girls want to be with. Tom Atkins for James Bond. Yeah.
Do you know what I love about Halloween 3 is the tagline? This time, was it? This time nobody could know it. This time,
I can't remember. Came home, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. The night no one came home, but they must have to watch the telly. That sort of defeats the plot. But what I love about Halloween 3 is if you watch the beginning of that, you swear you're watching Terminator.
Yeah.
You sit there thinking, hang on, is this a Terminator film? The music and all that, and you actually think they've ripped off James Cameron. Yeah, the fact this came out before Terminator is absolutely freaky. So it makes you think, well, did James Cameron a secret fan of Halloween 3?
The premise for it is so weird and so good fun. Like I just try and imagine the look on the suits' faces as they're going, okay, well, we made some bank at the first two Halloweens. What do you want to do for the next one? They're like, well, why do we do this film where it's about a bunch of magic masks and then some snakes come out of her face, right? And you're like, what? Then they're like, why? They're like, well, some shite about Stonehenge.
Oh, God.
I thought this was fantastic. Really, really good fun. And you know what? If they had gone down that route, if they'd gone down the anthology route, I think they could have had an absolute blast if they just made them all films about the Halloween season.
They could have. They said the film flopped, and then of course when they had all the Friday 13th films and everything, massive success. So they wanted to bring back Michael. Then they needed this boogeyman back in play. Obviously, John Carpenter said no, but then as soon as the rights went back to the company in 1988, obviously Halloween 4 came out. But it's interesting you say about the anthology. If Halloween 4 stuck to the original ending, then we probably would have had a real special franchise here. You know, I mean, Halloween 5 was set out to be Jamie, and the fact, Donald Pleasence signed up for it, and the fact they, again, because of the fail of Halloween 3, they thought they couldn't make Halloween 5 without Michael Myers in it. They went back into, he survived again, which I think that point of the year, he got shot down and fell down a mine, mining thing, and a strange man and had to rescue him for a year. Stupid. They could have had something really special there if they had the balls to carry on. And I don't know, but obviously they didn't, and we ended up where we are now.
Do you know, were Carpenter and Hill involved with the third one at all? Like, I know they're producers on it, but do you know if they had much creative input whatsoever?
I think they did, yeah. I think they were partly involved. They weren't majorly involved, but they had their hands in it. Because I think Tom Lee Wallace, who was part of the original Halloween films 1 and 2, he directed it. So yeah, Carpenter had his hands in the middle of it, but he had a bit of influence, but he did step back.
It's interesting, like with Carpenter, he speaks nowadays quite openly about doing things for the money, right? But it also occurs to me that if he'd always been motivated by the money, then he would have just made a whole ton of Halloween ones. He'd have gone, fuck it, we're going to release tons of these while the slasher genre is booming. And it strikes me that he didn't really want to do that. Like, I respect that he had this major property now, or something that could be a major property given where the market was going. And he decides, all right, well, rather than going down the easy route of just making another Michael Myers film, we're going to do this weird little dark comedy about masks.
Well, yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, I don't think any other franchise, especially now with the modern era, would do this. You can't make a Jigsaw film, a Saw film without, hang on, let's change tack, let's make it about Stonehenge. Yeah. There's no Jigsaw, but we're going to call it Saw. But it was a very brave approach for a film that came out too soon, right in the middle of the boom of the of the slasher of the 80s. I mean, I think it came out at the same time as Friday the 13th Part 3, which by then, of course, the famous ski mask Jason was taken over then. So it did get lost in the mix, which is a massive shame because I'm so glad now that this has found the level of the last 10, 15 years. Because before that, about 20 years ago, Halloween wasn't even talked about. But I'm glad that there's fans out there appreciating what it achieved, because it's a fantastic horror film on its own. Forget about the Halloween film. If we weren't called Halloween 3 and called Season of the Stone Edge, I think we were talking about a fantastic film here. Did you enjoy it, Jim?
Yeah,
you did,
I thought it was good. I wouldn't go as far as praising it as much as you have been, but it was perfectly fine. I think had it had a bit more money behind it, it would have looked a lot better, because it has got massive TV movie vibes, from the beginning. And a lot of what goes on in it is pretty stupid as well. I mean, these mechanical assassins, it's just, I don't know, it's just a bit too daft. But yeah, overall, it's a perfectly entertaining film. I wouldn't rank it as one of the better sequels myself, and it would have been an interesting direction to see if they had gone the whole anthology route with the rest of them. But it's fine as what it is. A pleasant diversion, and as you say, it's got a great ending, but I wouldn't quite say it's as brilliant as some of the other Halloween films.
It wasn't a flop, or it was made for $2 million, and I think the box office was $14 million, which is not a bad turnover in 1983. So to say this is box office bomb is quite unfair on everyone involved. It took his money, it tripled his money back. It's just that back then fans wanted Michael Myers back. The clamour was there, even though he burned to crisp and along with Donald Pleasance in the end of Halloween 2, and he got shot in the eye twice, in both eyes, which made him blind, which is totally ignored. But, it was a brave attempt by Carpenter, Wallace and Deborah Hill, but sadly it didn't quite work out unfairly.
Folks, this brings me to the next question. Of the sequels, not including either of the new ones, which I'm sure will piss off Ross because he was just going to see Halloween Kills, what is your favourite Halloween sequel?
I'm going to say 4. It started off pretty well. I mean, it had a good enough follow-on from the second film. It was stupid enough to have both Loomis and Michael surviving that inferno, and obviously Loomis is scarred as a result of that.
Yeah, he got off lightly.
He's scarred, but his coat survived.
So he got a flame retardant one.
He's obviously got the cartoon wardrobe, hasn't he? Every coat hanger is the same beige duster. But it does go down the usual slasher trope route at this point, but I like the little things like the vigilante group that gets whipped up, and I've got to say there is a bit of a lull, but then we get to that ending, and it was just wow. That made up for what I would say is a bit of a shaky, third act for the most part. I was starting to lose a bit of interest, and then you've got Michael being shot down the well and all that, and then all of a sudden, it's Jamie's mum's being stabbed, and you think, how did he get out of that? And then obviously it flips the perspective, and it's Jamie stood at the top of the stairs.
That ending was superb.
It's incredible. I mean, like the film's how old now, and I'd not read anything about the twist, so I was really happy about that, and I'm sorry if I just spoiled it for anyone, but that was one hell of a twist, and that elevated it way higher than I would have probably rated it up to that point.
Good choice. I absolutely love that one as well. I think it's not my favourite sequel, which I'll come to in just one sec, but I think for me, Halloween 4 is maybe the one that comes closest to recapturing the atmosphere of the first one. It is more of a slasher direction, but it's also got a bit more of the stalker elements. It's got a bit more of the kind of quiet suburban stuff. And I think this is just before the series gets ready to go into this really silly Curse of Foreign angle, which we'll discuss in a few minutes.
Although they do kind of push the supernatural killing machine bit, though, don't they? Where he basically takes out an entire police station.
Yeah, true. I mean, that does also come down to one of the series' other recurring motifs, which is completely inept police force. But my favourite sequel out of them all is Halloween H2O. I absolutely love Halloween H2O. For me, this is the only one where the brother and sister angle works. I think it works phenomenally when you've got this new version of Laurie who's just, her whole life has been dominated by this one night. And yet, unlike the new ones, which make her a kind of Sarah Connor figure, I like that we've got a much more relatable form of trauma here. You know, this is someone who's, on face value, they've got it made for them. You know, she's got a very good job. She's got a kid. She's doing all right for herself, but she's still just unable to fully get over what happened there. And I really liked the kind of show of strength that we've got of her going back to confront Michael Myers, back to fight this trauma. And I thought, as far as recapturing some of the slasher fun goes, it's obviously capitalizing on films like Scream coming out. Hence, we've got Kevin Williamson as one of the co-writers on it. But it also just seemed to be doing quite a bit of service to the original. I think the fight scene we get out of her and Myers at the end, the bit where she's sort of stalking him too, it was a really good bit of cat and mouse, and maybe the series at its most tense. The only bad thing about this film, I reckon, or the only particularly bad thing about this, the soundtrack was a real example of why sometimes less is more. The orchestra, it was just, I know they were using some of the John Carpenter motifs, but as a soundtrack, it felt so generic and really lost something from the rest of the series. But I love Halloween H2O. It's my favorite of the sequels.
I think H2O, I got, when I went to the cinema in 1998, I left so angry, so frustrated that because of that final shot. Because don't forget, this was an era. I also call Halloween H2O the Scream version, because it's basically it even got the Scream theme a little bit in the film. If you catch it quickly, it is made for the Scream audience. So I left that at the cinema in 1998 so annoyed that they killed Michael Myers off. I think you can't do that, because I said, don't forget, this was an era where there was no remix. I mean, I think we were a year away from seeing Norman Bates masturbate in a Psycho remake. That really did add to the original. Thanks, Gus. And there's no such thing as different timelines like it is now. So I sat in a cinema thinking, oh my God, they've just killed Michael off. There's no coming back here. Obviously, Halloween Resurrection pissed on that in the first 10 minutes in the next film. But now, over the last years, I think it's absolutely brilliant. It is close as it can get. And for the trilogy of films, if you watch Halloween and Halloween 2, then H2O, I think it's perfect for the franchise. I think you've got the Laurie Strode story there. She survived the first one. She fought a little bit back in the second one because she found out then why Michael's stalking her. And then, of course, you got H2O, which ends her journey. And quite rightly said, I think she's better portrayed in this than she is in the 2018 film, and also Halloween Kills as well, in which she does show a lot of strength. She's still got the drink problem. She's meeting a guy who the headmaster of the school, or if he entered a George Clooney lookalike competition, he'd probably come second. And I think it's just a perfect end to the original Halloween story.
Yeah.
Less said about Halloween Resurrection, the better.
The sort of standoff that we're getting between the two of them, there's some emotional gravity to this. We're getting this movie that's at once quite an intimate trauma story, but it's also quite an epic finale to the series. Now, I don't know if you guys saw the video of Jamie Lee Curtis talking about the decision to kill off Michael, but she claims that as we were filming this, as we were putting this together, someone came to her, one of the suits was saying, look, it's actually part of the contract, we can't kill Michael, right? And so she was like, what? I want you to do this film, provided that we did kill Michael. And apparently it's Kevin Williamson who came up with the compromise, said, okay, what about we don't kill Michael, but Laurie believes he's dead, and so do the audience. Like, they knew at this point they were going to be making an eighth one, but they're saying, look, the character still gets her closure. She thinks that she's killed him. The audience think he's dead, but he isn't dead. And then the studio agreed to that. And so did Jamie Lee Curtis. So she was saying in the interview that the reason she came back for Resurrection was she insisted that they get that ending, that she gets to have that closure, and so do the fans. But at the same time, that she wanted there to be consequences for Laurie having killed the wrong person.
Oh, for goodness sake, that's nonsense. I've never seen a film like Halloween Resurrection destroy everything good about H2O.
We might come to Resurrection in a moment.
Can I just say about H2O, it also contains the best Easter egg ever in any horror film, in any film.
The car.
That bit which I took, that bit with the mother, Janet Leigh, and she walks off and the Psycho music's playing and she goes in the Psycho car. Oh my, that is just absolutely perfect. I love that moment. I do. I loved it then. I love it now. And like you said, David, I would agree. I would disagree with you maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but over time, I think H2O has improved massively, especially when you compare it to the new ones we're going to talk about later on. My favorite Halloween sequel, I won't count Halloween 2 because I think it's a direct continuation from Halloween the original, but I'm with Jim. I think Halloween 4. It's the one I always go back to. It's my Jason Lives of the franchise. You know, I know it's stupid. I know at moments it's dumb, but I think the first 20 minutes is fantastic. I love the bit where Donald plays and meets Michael in the cafe and he says, don't go back. And then he shoots and the garbage blows up and Donald plays like John McClane diving over the fire. You know, my God, you're a doctor, man. You're a doctor. And I also love the moment. I remember watching this when I think I was 11 years of age, and I couldn't get my head around it at the time. It's so stupid now looking back. It's when Rachel's with Jamie and Donald plays and grabs her, and she points, "Oh look, Michael's there," and then the cop goes, "Look, he's over there," and there's two of them.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, there's two Michael Myers. He's got a brother." And then, of course, they take their mask off for this Halloween. Hey, great laugh. But then when the car drives off, Michael's behind them. Where'd he come from? But that's the cheese, and that's why I love Halloween 4. And if you catch a moment as well, I don't know if you noticed when you were watching Jim, there's a moment where they grab Donald Pleasence and he chucks him through the school door.
Yeah,
when in the climax. If you pause it carefully, Michael Myers is wearing a blonde wig.
Oh, I hope that's a fitting tribute to Mr. Ben Tramer.
Oh, how can you mention Ben Tramer? Brilliant.
The most unfortunate death in the entire franchise.
Every Halloween, I light a candle for Ben.
He's just crossing the road wearing a Shatner mask.
That's not that. He doesn't look like Michael Myers, but that's not the first time that happens in the franchise. But at least Ben Tramer sort of looked like Michael Myers.
Yeah.
I will get to him on about in a bit.
Oh God, yeah, I know where you're going with this. But like Ben Tramer, fucking he explodes.
He's carrying a shopping bag. When do you think he went shopping? Oh look, it's Michael Myers. Hang on, he's carrying a shopping bag. Oh, he must have been Asda's beforehand. Hey, here we go.
It amuses me about Halloween Resurrection is so Michael Myers. The Myers house has electricity in it. I like to believe that Myers has to pay the bills for this, or he has to go down every so often to sign on for Social Security. One way or the other, someone's paying that bill. Anyway.
Go Halloween Resurrection.
On the subject of Halloween Resurrection, is that anyone's least favourite in the series? Because it's not my least favourite.
I won't count the Rob Zombie films because I think that's a different time.
We'll come to them separately.
So for the overall thing, then, Halloween Resurrection is absolutely appalling. And it didn't help that My Little Lie came out a couple of months before Halloween Resurrection, and I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's a fantastic film, My Little Lie. But, oh my God, everything is so bad. You know, Dangertainment. I felt Dangertainment watching this pile of shit.
I thought Trick or Treat Motherfucker was the best bit of it.
No. Do you know the best part there? And this is the part many people miss. Now, Laurie Strode is in a mental home, right? I think that's the right word, a mental hospital. He busts down a security door. He walks through it, right? I'm thinking, my God, this man's got strength. But then at the end, when he's in the Halloween, his old Michael Myers house, his own house, I can't remember the final girl. She puts a wooden chair up against a wooden door, which is rotten, and he's shaking the door and can't get in. And I'm thinking, what the heck? You can bust through a medical security door, but you can't bust through a wooden door that's probably been rotten for 40 years. Oh, the film is awful, guys. Honestly, it absolutely is. Where did he find time to change? You know, he killed that guy. He went downstairs, stripped into his pants. Oh, come on. And then he walks off holding a knife. That's the best thing. He walks off to all the coppers holding a knife into the distance. Oh, guys, it's awful. Absolutely awful.
I think my least favourite in this series is part 6. I think the reason for this is part...
No.
Yes,
No.
part 6, it's the furthest away from the source material. You're like, how the fuck did this whole, like, yes, the curse of Myers. Myers must die at the hands of Myers and stuff like this. Like, it was a way of just taking what should have been a really simple formula and then just bringing in all of this kind of crap to it. Like, it's this cult, sacrifices, rituals, the telekinesis element from part 5 being carried across. At least part 5 had Donald Pleasance giving the best Loomis speech. His whole speech about the rage and things. That was good.
Yeah, but by part 5, he puts Jamie in danger. That's the only thing I don't like about part 5.
I could buy that.
All his bearings are gone.
Yeah.
He's actually, I guess, off. He's off in its way. Yeah, hey, well, Michael, take Jamie. Hang on, Donald.
I could buy
Most
that.
of the screen time yelling at the kids as well.
There's always been something quite unhinged about him. You know that he would gladly kill Michael, for instance, right? And as it goes on, it gets more and more urgent for him. This, I guess, what it's doing with the new film does, which is when you chase a monster, you have to become a monster, right? It's just this stretches the arc across 4 films. I agree that Loomis in part 1 wouldn't have knowingly put a kid in danger. Loomis in part 5, I reckon he's got so much guilt about Michael still being there that he's willing to do it.
Look, he could offer, if he offered Tina, I'd throw a party, because Tina's probably the most annoying character in any sort of franchise. But to offer little Jamie, I was like, come on, Donald, you're losing the plot, yeah. You know, it's just, but then this is a lot of good moments in Halloween 5 to make it worth the watch. And I'm not talking about the 2 coppers with the music. You know, it's like Laurel and Hardy turning up.
That was really weird.
But
that only happened once, didn't it? Like, just
it happened twice.
Oh.
It happened twice, and the reason why he done it is because the director was a fan of The Last House on the Left, and Wes Craven contained that music or something when the 2 coppers turned up in there, and that's the Ocean. But it's so out of place. When I first
heard it, I thought, oh, is this the kind of film it's going to be? But then nothing else. It's what?
The only reason I can think of to include it is they have to make the police look a bit incompetent so that they can't be relied upon to solve things.
Yeah, I mean, that was telegraphed pretty clearly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's that hot fuzz thing, you know, of, all right, here's a cop in a small town. What do these guys do? But in this one, like it's just, I don't think it works.
But weirdly, I can't dislike it. It's very strange. A lot of it is terrible, but I couldn't stop watching. Part of me was like, why are you still here? But another part of this is great.
He kills that poor hermit for no reason. Now he's lying in a coma for a year.
Yeah.
Didn't even get up and say thank you. We then find out that he's been in a coma. He's been laid out for a year, but Jamie has aged 2 years, so that makes no sense. She's then got a psychic link with him, like in Jaws 4. But then I'm criticising it, but then there's some, okay, the mask is stupid. The mask is overlong. It's over his shoulders. You know, it's like William Shatner's been stretched in a washing machine. But there's some really good, when Jamie's trapped in that shaft in the house, that is a pretty intense scene, you know, and I'm thinking, whoa, you actually felt danger for Jamie there. And then I like that bit when she's in the coffin and she asks him to take the mask off and that little tear. And I did like that bit as well, and then the rage come back again. So there is some very good moments in there, but then you can see how with all the Halloween films, even Halloween Resurrection, which is absolutely appalling, but there is some good moments in that as well. But David, have you seen Halloween 6, the producer's cut?
Yeah. Now, I don't remember the producer's cut well enough to have a strong stance on how much better it is, but the ending at least made a bit more sense, whereas in this one, Loomis is like, you guys, like, how much of that slap in the face is just a Donald Pleasance, by the way? This guy's like, yeah, you kids go. I got some stuff to do, and then dies off screen. It's like, I'd like Loomis to go, you kids go, and then just drive, and then, like, you know, we can drive off or something like that. Or at least we don't even see Loomis afterwards, or have a bit of reshot footage where folks go, I hope Loomis is enjoying his retirement. Something different from he goes in, gets killed off screen, but it's like in loving memory of Donald Pleasance. I bet he'd be proud.
Yes, I think the producer's cut feels more of a Halloween film. There's a couple of shots with Michael in the background. You got the music as well. I got a soft spot for the sixth one. I got to be honest. So don't forget. I think when this came out, it went number 1 in the box office above 7. Can you believe that? Only for a week. Only for a week, granted, but still, But I got a soft spot for Halloween 6.
It gave us Paul Rudd. That's something good.
That's the main thing, yeah. The proper Tommy. Well, he didn't get a mob party. Never mind, I'm not saying anything anymore.
Jim, what's your least favourite Halloween film?
It's got to be Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie, but if we're discounting the zombie films, then yeah, Resurrection. The only thing I remember from that is having a really bad stomachache near the end. I had to stop watching for a little while whilst I was doubled down in pain, but it was terrible.
You all felt like that, Jim.
Well, one redeeming feature, I quite like seeing Starbuck from Battlestar in it.
She done a good thing a couple of last year. She done that, I think, last Halloween. She watched it with the fans on Twitter, didn't she? And it was quite fun, actually, yeah. And then she was laughing how bad it is. It's a terrible film, Halloween Resurrection. And it's directed by Rick Rosenthal, who actually done the original Halloween 2.
Yeah.
So you actually think, I was going in and thinking, this is going to be good. How is he going to come back? Was it a dream? Is he going to step out of a shower? Which would have been a much better premise. I'd rather Laurie wake up in bed thinking, who's in the shower? And this Michael Lear with his mask on, putting a bit of Lynx Africa on. But no.
Frankly, I'd be surprised he didn't just say, Steve Miner, please make another movie.
He probably saw the script and thought, you what? That poor man at the end of H2O, I can't even watch H2O now. When you got the man, he's begging for his life. The music plays, his head's bobbing on the grass. Jamie's so content, thinking the poor man, he's got a family. And Michael's poor Howard from the hostel.
There's something so fun about the way that, 24 years later, after 8 entries or 7 with Myers, right? There's something quite funny that the last one he's defeated, in the last part of the canon, because we then get a reboot after this, is being kicked by Buster Rhymes.
That's all. This is the LL Cool J moment of H2O. He's in the script, he can't die. But oh my God, what's going on? And there's an actually deleted scene from Halloween Resurrection, which I really wish they included in the film. If they did, it would have been 5 stars. You got the Michael Myers' house, and you got his car pull up, and you got the music playing, the proper John Carpenter music. And all of a sudden, someone gets out of the car, and it's Michael wearing the mask. And you're thinking, oh, he's driven there. And then all of a sudden, he puts the car alarm on. And I'm thinking, so Michael Myers knows how to use a car alarm. So where's he been for the last year?
Amazing little detail.
It's like one little thing, you go, the beep beep.
Something else that's weird about it is Buster Rhymes in it. His character is the only character that has any form of an arc. Where he begins by going, oh, I love reality TV. And by then he's like, fuck reality TV. It turns on his own audience. That's the emotional arc he undergoes. I suppose you got the girl who becomes less shy and is now willing to meet her boyfriend in real life. I suppose that qualifies as an arc. Although I can't imagine being too shy to speak to your boyfriend in real life you're only talking to over the phone, or the internet, sorry, but being perfectly happy to go on a reality TV show. These are two. These things, one is more pressure than the other. Anyway, I think I want to ask you guys about is the cult of Thorn. This whole idea of Myers being marked from birth by the mysterious cult of Thorn as part of a tradition involving blood sacrifices, symbols, and an ancient order. Could this possibly have worked?
No. Because I think, as what Billy says in Scream, no motive is scary. And the fact, that's what makes the Halloween, the original so fantastic. I am got the issue with the sister part as well. I know a lot of Halloween fans have. They'll always show it with sister, but it sort of helped the dynamic towards the end of Halloween 2. But obviously they had to move on, and they had that stupid end in Halloween 5 where he was blown from prison. And who's the man in the cowboy hat? Is it John Wayne? As he come to rescue him, and of course we've got that stupid cult which. By the time we got to that, as you quite rightly said, David, the film lost the franchise had lost any single intelligence. Let's be honest, he was going through the motions, trying to explain why Michael's got this rage. Well, he didn't have to. I mean, there's no reason why Michael couldn't go from town to town. It didn't have to be Haddonfield. This is Unstoppable Boogeyman, but it didn't work
Yeah,
for
a
me.
bit like a joke. You don't want to be having to explain it.
Yes.
And for me, this one was just so out of sync with the original source of tension, the idea of being vulnerable in your own house. And then this turns into like, oh, but imagine if your uncle was being told what to do by a cult, right? And you're like, nah. You lose the visceral nature of the whole thing.
What about you, Jim?
6 is the only one I haven't seen, actually. So can't really say anything on that one, unfortunately.
I wouldn't recommend it. Does the idea of knowing why Myers does what he does that strike you as a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, as you've already said, motive kind of takes away the scare, doesn't it? So it's unnecessary.
This brings us to a totally unrelated point. Let's discuss Rob Zombie ones. So
who's going to go
I
first?
used to genuinely quite like the first Rob Zombie film, and I used to hate the second one. I don't want to open old wounds by me and Ross falling out over the second Rob Zombie one, but I have now come to the position of not liking the first Rob Zombie one, but actually quite liking the second. I think with the first one, it spends far too long trying to do like, here's a character study about like Michael Myers, and then just turns him into this kind of like big unstoppable force that can break down walls. Like you don't need to do both. And with the second one, there's some bad bits in the second one, don't be wrong, everyone slags off the horse, fair enough, right? But what I liked about the second one was it said, in an era when we can't really do slashers at face value any longer because Scream, then can we use the rough template of the slasher, but make it a personal trauma story, a personal revenge story, this kind of thing? And for me, it stretched Rob Zombie did a very difficult job of updating a slasher series to work in an era when slashers aren't viable. And I think he did quite well. I think I also kind of respect what he did a bit more in light of the sequels. And that's not because I think the sequels are worse films or anything like that at all. But I think the sequels were far safer films than what Zombie did. And love him or hate him with Rob Zombie, he's one of relatively few directors you can watch 30 seconds of any of his movies and know it's a Rob Zombie film.
Is that because it's his wife on the screen?
But he get her to play the shark in Jaws, you know. In his remake of The Blob, she'd have been playing The Blob with CGI enhancements. You know, yeah. But what do you guys make of the zombie ones?
Well, I'll go first because I've got probably the least amount to say. It's been a while. I remember watching the first one when it first aired on TV. Obviously, it's a lot grimier. They tried to get under the skin a bit more, but overall, it just doesn't hold a candle to the original. And the sequel, I have actually tried a few times, but I've not been able to finish. It's shit. There's no two ways about it. It's just absolutely fucking diabolical. I've not been able to finish it.
And Ross, what are your thoughts on them?
I'm sorry, you lost me when you said the word Rob Zombie. What I'm talking about? No, look. Jokes aside, I went to the anytime an Halloween film comes, I'm there in the cinema. I actually hated the remake first of all. Obviously, you would, but over the time, considering you see how bad the Friday 13 films are, the remake is, and also the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is, I think Rob Zombie actually delivered in many aspects of the Halloween. I think it was good. It's great. Its remake is great up to the point where it becomes Carpenter. We'll have the asylum with the hostel and all that, where the young Michael is and Sherry Moon's, the wife's going there, and you see him grow to a 9-foot tall giant. I don't know the fact they feed him in it. I mean, he's a tall little kid with long hair, and all of a sudden he's touching the ceiling. So I did like that moment, but then when it came to the Carpenter part, it was just, you might as well watch Halloween again, As for Rob Zombie Halloween 2, oh my God, do I have to talk about it? Absolutely brilliant for 25 minutes. I thought, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is going to be outstanding. And then we find out it was all a dream. From there, the film didn't absolutely recover. Scott Compton is absolutely atrocious in it. I'm sorry, but she is. The writing's bad. There's so much things that doesn't make sense in the movie. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, how can Laurie Strode in this version have visions of a mother she never saw? I mean, why have we got a white horse walking back and forth? Why have we got Love Hurts, bellowing through the soundtrack? Love Hurts, my ears are hurting. It's just an absolute awful film. And then when you see Michael Myers with a beard and he goes, no, at the end, I was thinking, oh, please stop this pain.
Oh, something they brought back. I liked it in tribute to the first one. Myers eats a dog.
Oh, yes. We'll eat a dog in every film.
I was wondering, right, for the longest time, when I was watching the first one, for the longest time, when they have a bit where they find the dog, they're like, he got hungry. I thought they just meant he was killing for the first time. But I find out that every other fan takes it that Michael Myers ate the dog. Right? That's like, yeah, that makes more sense. It's not like he's building up to his kills. Oh, that reminds me. There's a wee dig at the Rob Zombie ones in Halloween Kills. You've got quite a funny line about, hey, so what kind of kid was Myers? Did he like sit around torching animals and stuff? We're like, nah, nothing like that.
Is that, I didn't catch it. I did catch it in the 2018 version, in which the father, I think he says dick or something, the word dick or something, or penis over the kitchen table, and they all go, ooh, disgusting, Dad. And thinking, well, as I said earlier, she was fingering a bagel in the Rob Zombie version and saying the word fuck 5 times. So, this is where we go in. But I can't. I'm going to try Rob Zombie. I made a decision after watching Halloween Kills that I'm going to try Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 this Halloween. I haven't seen it for maybe 8-9 years, and I've tried watching it 3 times. I have watched to the end, but I just don't like anything about it. I don't like the Malcolm McDonald's Dr. Loomis. I think it's not the Dr. Loomis we should be the character we know. I get what you're saying, David. He's being brave. I get that. I honestly do. And I do understand as well personally why there's the new version of Halloween fans like that, like it. But for the diehard fans like myself who's brought up on the Carpenter world, then I appreciate what Rob Zombie done to the franchise, but it's not for me. And that's me being diplomatic.
Fair enough. I think it's as diplomatic as I've ever heard you about for Rob Zombie Halloween films.
I don't want this to go out rated 18.
I think with him, to be fair to him, like he made a series that's got a very particular style. He made it his own. And while there's something frustrating about going, oh, look, now Michael Myers is part of the hillbilly family, right? And all the characters in it dress like for Rob Zombie fans. At the same time, there was just something quite ballsy about it. And yeah, it's a lose-lose situation when you're remaking Halloween. Good on him for not taking the easy route. And yeah, with the second one, I don't know if you're necessarily going to like it anymore. And, I hated it for the longest time myself, but I think it gives the character of Laurie a bit more depth than I was expecting. I like that it deals with the PTSD side quite directly, and there's a really harrowing scene where Brad Dourif, finds out that his daughter's dead. That whole sequence is like it sort of says, yeah, there are real consequences to this. I mean, Myers' MO's kind of changed. He's now just killing in the most needlessly violent ways that he can, which is surely a theme we'll be coming to later on. It's a very far distance from just a stab against the wall or something, but at an age when slasher films aren't really being made, and at an age when torture films were in, I like that they made the violence in it violent but not fun.
I did one thing I will praise. What I do remember that left a mark on me watching the second Rob Zombie sequel was the death of Danielle Harris's character. I mean, that was hard punching. I mean, she's a massive film. She's up there with Jamie Lee Curtis, with the fans' hearts. I know she's playing a different character in the zombie films, but it's still Jamie in our eyes. And the fact that she survived the first film and she died in the second one was quite. Well, I remember that being a hard punch, and I think I was the time I was like, oh my god, I was really gripped into that moment. But it's only because it's Danielle Harris as well.
I remember hearing a while back that the original script for the first film had Myers speaking in it, where he said one word, and
Ben Shamer.
And me and one of my mates had this joke that he would go, "Love." Then one night he calls me up because he was watching a film called Offerings, where you have this mute character who's bullied, comes back to kill everyone who bullied him, and as he's dying at the end, he looks at this girl and goes, "Love." So when Myers finally speaks in the second one, was it die? I think he shouts, and the director's
Or die, or was it die? I thought he said it was no, I can't remember. Yeah, it must have been die, you know,
yeah,
at the
the
end.
director's cut of part 2, which director's cut edition is definitely better than the theatrical version as well.
I will watch that this Halloween, and I will tell you my opinion won't change.
Now, let's move on then, folks. We're going to go to Halloween H40, aka Halloween 2018.
He's waited for this night. He's waited for me. I've waited for him. Get out! Go home! Get inside! You don't believe in the boogeyman? He's here! Michael! You should.
So, Halloween H2O Part 2, otherwise just known as Halloween. What do you guys think of this one? Because when this came out, I remember it being very warmly received, and I've noticed a bit of a sea change in the way that people talk about it now. I don't think it's aged very well.
No, funny enough, I watched it the day before I went to see Halloween Kills, and I had massive issues with it, first of all. The cinema I went to was very, very flat, I got to be honest with you. I mean, it was totally different when I went to see Scream 4, which it was bouncing and, you know, the fans were jumping up and down. It was crazy. It was the end of coming out the cinema at the end of Scream 4 was like the beginning of Scream 2, which I know Jim hates. You know, you had that buzz and I thought this was going to do really well. So the fact that it flopped, I was a bit surprised. So when I left Halloween, and it's guaranteed, if you go to the early show in these films, the only people are there 11 o'clock in the morning are the diehard fans. And there's no couples there 11 o'clock in the morning. You got sad men like me, over 40, thinking, yeah, here we go. And we all talk in the end how disappointed we were. I got serious issues with Halloween 2018. And there's many things wrong with it. I totally understand getting rid of the brother-sister angle, but I don't get why, if they bring back Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
I mean, how can I say? What's frustrating me with the Halloween films, and no directors seem to be doing it, or even no writer, they got a perfect vantage point to set off a new timeline with Halloween. The bit when Dr. Loomis shoots Michael Myers and he falls down, and Dr. Loomis looks down and he's gone. There's a new timeline there. This series could go in any single direction. They could do Halloween 1985. Where he comes back to Haddonfield. Laurie's gone. There's no Dr. Loomis. You've got no baggage. But instead, they decided to do another H40 in which H20 told the story well, which we all agreed earlier. You know, they didn't add nothing to Laurie's character. And the fact then the main plot device was to get Laurie and Michael in the same room towards the end when there's no need to. If they were going to make it 40 years later, Laurie Strode does not have to be in this movie, and it would have been a better movie without it.
Yeah, because I think something that really fucked me off with the last act here is the way that Michael finds her by sheer chance.
Well, yeah, because the doctor's a psycho.
If Dr. Curtain wasn't a total raj, then the two of them wouldn't meet each other. And I didn't like the way that at the end, going into the final fight, Michael Myers is almost in the Doctor's sleep position, where he's a villain that's got a distinct disadvantage. It's a house full of traps and 3 heavily armed women. And we never really buy that any of them are in particular danger. The bit where she's stalking around the house, we get some callbacks, like where he looks out the window and she's gone. That was quite nice. Just like when she's outside the school window, actually. I wonder if she regrets buying all those dummies, because that makes her job harder. Likewise, I don't understand why she turns off the electricity. That gives her a handicap, but does not give Michael Myers a handicap, since he's killed in the dark in the first one.
Yeah.
At the same time, I just sort of felt like, okay, Myers is still quite a decent killer here, but by removing all the other films from it, he kills more people in that stalk and slash scene alone than he does in the entire original film. It's having its cake and eating it, because the audience treat Michael like Michael's done all the other sequels, but the characters in it only acknowledge the first one. Well, I just don't think that Michael Myers would be the stuff of legends. They have kids pointing this out, but at the same time, it's totally true.
Why did he have to be locked up in the beginning? Okay, I would have loved it. I think the film would be better when Laurie's drinking and she's watching Michael go. You know, when she's in the car and he's in the bus. My thought, she's going to cause this crash.
Mm.
And I thought that would be a better angle because she's got the guilt then. Hang on, you know, she's got to end this. She caused the crash and he's escaped. And I thought that would be a better angle. It would have given her a motive as well, you know, to be in the film. But the fact she doesn't, and as you quite rightly said, and what I laughed at when we watched it last 2 weeks ago was she spends the first hour of the film warning everyone Michael's escaped. Soon as her and her daughter are safe, they lock themselves in a panic room downstairs where the granddaughter's running around the streets. They don't give a shit about the granddaughter or the daughter. Oh, we safe in here. Well, hang on, your granddaughter's outside being stalked and prayed. You know, you don't care about her. It's a mess. There's some 1 or 2 good moments in it, but they're too far in between. And again, I'm shocked because David Gordon Green is a massive Halloween fan. You know, he classifies the original as one of the best horror films of all time. But he just doesn't get the essence of it.
I mean, there were some really good aspects of it. I think the soundtrack was very nice. That was cool as fuck.
Yeah.
While I thought the opening of the mental hospital was not particularly good, I loved the cut to the pumpkin rebuilding itself. They're like, yeah, forget everything else, we're back. That was quite nice. Yeah. And I did quite like the way that the character arcs were integrated with the action. You know, you've got the granddaughter who's not doubting her grandmother, as she refers to Laurie, very, very posh. The way that, like, you know, you've got her kind of seeing her grandma. She always believed her grandma, or at least that she wants a relationship with her grandma. You've got why Laurie would have been absolutely impossible to grow up with as your mum. And I like the way that we see the 3 different generations working together. That being said, it really irked me off that the daughter, Karen, it irks me off that Karen didn't get killed in this film, because we need to see that Myers is dangerous. Like, the 2 people that he does kill, you've got the incel kid that he kills, and we also have we've got Vicky, the babysitter, and we also have the husband. There's a husband in it. They kind of have a bit of fun with him. Like, you know, this guy's as beta male as you can be. You know, he's like, oh no, I got some peanut butter on my penis because he can't open a jar properly, right? So I just never really bought that Myers was like that threatening to the leads, and that was something that just meant for me there wasn't much tension to it. Still, you know, I think where it did work was largely in the kind of presentation and losing some of the goofier elements. I agree that there's not really a whole lot of reason why Myers and Laurie, like what Myers is really doing there. But at the same time, I like that we're back to basics here. We don't have a white horse. There's no celebrity guest cameos from rappers. You don't have the cult of Thorn here. We just have a back to basics Halloween film.
Yeah, but did we not have this in H2O?
Yeah, we did have a rapper in H2O.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean H2O, I do think H2O is a much more successful telling of this sort of same kind of story. I mean, largely because H2O I think is a lot more suspense, and I think it personalized the conflict more. But at the same time, I think that this was maybe, after the Rob Zombie ones, this was maybe the sort of sequel that we needed.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jim, what do you think?
I agree with you on the, you know, on revision, it probably isn't as brilliant as when I first watched it. When I saw this at the cinema opening night, I was absolutely buzzing afterwards. I thought it was fantastic. I've never been someone who thinks it has to stick to a certain set of rules or a certain style. And we've had enough sequels and remakes in the 40-year span between the films. So, you know, for me, it starts as it means to go on. It's right up there. It starts off quite intense and doesn't really let up throughout. I love the whole build-up of Michael getting back to Haddonfield, you know, stalking. Well, it seems to be
stalking.
Walking, then. Sure.
Oh,
going through, like that scene where he gets into the town, he's going through, you know, different houses and stuff. That was cool. Halloween isn't one you associate with like certain kills and so on, but I like the fact they've added that bit to it. Like you've got the service station And he walks in and he just drops the teeth over the cubicle door. I thought that was hilarious.
Taken out right out of Halloween H2O, that sequence.
Having watched a lot of the older sequels, I can see a lot of where they got the ideas for this one and Halloween Kills from. Like, even if it's just touching upon it, there are a lot of parallels in both films. But yeah, I think this, personally, this is probably my favorite after the first film.
What?
As I say, it started, right up there and just kept going. Like, the music's fantastic all the way through. I absolutely love the score, and yeah, just I thought there was attention to it. And even though Laurie and Michael meeting is technically entirely coincidental, just the whole build up to that, I thought was brilliant. I loved the characters, and I don't really hold much of a candle to any of the sequels anyway. So I was more than happy with what I saw here. And yeah, on repeat viewing, didn't quite enjoy it as much. Perhaps it's one that's better seen on the big screen. You got the loudspeakers, a big screen in front of you. It just adds an extra dimension to it. And watching it on TV, still enjoyed it, but not quite as much. But there's just loads of parts to it were fantastic. And yeah, I can't say it's a bad film at all.
I do like that bit when Michael comes into town. What I did like in Halloween Kills, this little part, and what I liked about 2018 now, is when Michael, after he's butchered that poor old woman with the arm and picks up the knife, he sees the doctor and the nurse were actually in Halloween Kills. And he's walking towards the gun, and they get in the car and drive off. So I did like that touch in Halloween Kills. Oh, that's the same couple in the first one. So I did like the continuity of that. But it's not Michael. If it's because he's been locked up for 40 years, but as David just said, all the baggage should be removed now, right? So this is not the Michael from Halloween 4, from 5 or 6. We went on the rampage. This is supposed to be Michael Myers of Halloween 1978, and we do not get this. What we've got in front of us is Jason.
But isn't Michael
wearing a William Shatner mask?
Isn't all of this really set into motion because of his doctor, who's basically off his fucking nut and is?
Yeah, but he escaped in the first one, and he didn't go around. Okay, classic scene. I was going to keep this bit for Halloween Kills, but I have to mention now because I think it's in the right conversation. There's a scene in Halloween 2, the original, which is one of the best. This is why Halloween 2, the original, is probably very Carpenter, is that when he survives the falling from the balcony, the first thing he goes to is that old couple's house. I don't know if you can remember it. And she's making a sandwich. And they're watching, I think, The Night of the Living Dead on the TV. And you see him coming in behind her. She's looking at the TV, and then the news comes on about the murders. And you can see the blooded hand reaching out for the knife. And he leaves a bit of blood on the table. And then you get that one little shot of the woman watching the telly with the husband, and Michael Myers is standing behind them. Right? Now, that bit is frightening. Now, the scariest part of that moment is he walks out and leaves. Now, that's frightening. Now, she turns around and she sees the blood and she starts screaming, doesn't she? And that's why that girl screams next door, and Michael Myers gets the attention and he kills her. This Michael Myers of 2018 would have killed that man and woman. No questions asked. But what's more scary about is the fact that he's standing behind this woman and he can kill, but he chooses not to, or just butchering people aimlessly for no need. That is the big question. If you get off on the gore porn, which I think these new set of films are, then you think these are outstanding. But if you want proper horror, Halloween 2018 is not scary.
It was something where they did show a slight bit of hesitancy. Was when we are meant to think that Myers might kill a baby, then doesn't, right?
Yeah, I hated that bit.
So that I liked that bit. I liked that it implied some sort of reasoning in Michael, right? And I guess it is slightly undermined that he does otherwise kill indiscriminately. But that moment to me, the suspense in the cinema, because there's like a little laugh of relief when Myers just walked off. The cinema people were all like, well, I don't want to see any babies get killed, but I'm okay with watching lots of other people get killed. Like, that for me is a good moment of horror. Is he going to do this? Is he going to do this? No, he's not.
Okay, that's granted, but then what is his limit? He kills that 10-year-old in the car.
Yes, so that,
So
that
what,
was
has he got an age limit? Is he like Robocop, a projector, a directive in his brain? You over 10, I'll have you.
that was something that did fuck me off. The killing, like the scene where you've got the dad and the son at the beginning,
Yeah.
and they're trying to help as well, and then they get killed. That whole bit was sad. But at the same time, like in fact, the other best bit of the film is the scene with all those kids. The bit with the babysitter Vicky and the wee boy she's babysitting, like that whole sequence was so cute. Like they were like their relationship was just brilliant. Like they're swearing away at each other, but they have banter.
Yeah, but you ruined that for me now. You personally ruined that scene for me. Because I watched it the other night and I couldn't get the words David Smith out of my head because it made me a scream, when in the toilet, where we said in the podcast, how long was we going to stand in our wardrobe to give us someone to come?
That is a great bit, you can't deny that's cracking. I loved that bit. That was hilarious.
I really didn't want her to die. Her death was by far the most emotionally affecting one. All of these two most recent films.
I like the kid. I did. I like the kid. His reaction was brilliant. Though. Oh, fuck this! I'm getting that was brilliant.
The two of them were just so funny together. Like I loved where she's like, you're the coolest kid that I have and stuff. He's like, yeah, you're the coolest babysitter, right? Like, that was the best bit of the film. That whole sequence. Such a wee shame she died. I cared when she died. I didn't care about the other characters he killed. They were either anonymous or they were assholes. With her, it's a shame.
I did like the bit as well with Carmen downstairs, and Michael. She's pretending to be upset, and she's got the shotgun, and then she's pretending to be like a victim. And then Michael appears and she says that great line, and I think, oh yeah, like she's played him with there. So there is tiny moments of the film which is. Well, it's like a proper Halloween sequel, isn't it? It's like the old ones. There's something there which will make you watch again. But it's not the film for me, which I think, oh yeah, I'm so glad they brought this back.
But can I say that Dr. Cartain, the new Loomis, oh God, that was terrible. I did like the false twist. How he puts on the mask and then just gets killed almost immediately. that I thought was nice. Although, tell you what, right? We saw Laurie's house earlier. It was really fortified. She's got walls everywhere. How did they drive right up to the entrance from ours to go and find her? I was like, fuck this. Last time we saw this house, she had more walls than Donald Trump's house, right? Like, there's no reason that Myers could just saunter up to the door like that.
Never thought of that.
I did like that we've got all the traps of the weapons, and she's able to batter them with a frying pan.
Oh God! What's better, that the finale of H2O where they really go for it, or H40? I'd give me H2O any other day.
Yeah, just thinking. The other film where we've got household utensils being used that way. Do you guys remember the movie You're Next? Where they've got just that bit towards the end, they've got a fight in the kitchen and like using blenders and stuff like that. Good.
God.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Talking about Halloween 2018 right now, I'm coming towards things I actually quite enjoyed about it, but at the same time, I always sort of took it as a 3-star film, and it just came down to the lack of tension for me, the lack of suspense and likable characters. And I think it's also maybe a defensiveness on my part, because when we're watching it at the cinema, you can't lose the baggage of Halloween H2O already existing. And the way that Jamie Lee Curtis and other members of the team kind of dismissed Halloween H2O as being a bit shit. As for releasing the new one.
I don't. It's an insult to that film. At least H2O, it dismissed the sequels beforehand, but it kept the notion of what Michael Myers is. But then Michael Myers weren't this bloody in H2O either. He was still very Carpenter. LL Cool J could have died 20 times in our film. And, he was in the shadows and all that. And it was much like the original Halloween. Of course, it lacked the quality and the intensity of the original Halloween. But it was building up to that last 25, minutes. And that's why H2O works so well, because it's leading somewhere. As soon as that bus drives off for overnight camp and the Halloween music plays, like, this is Halloween now. But you never get this with Halloween 2018. It's one tone throughout, it's very dark. You got, as you say, Laurie is Sarah Connor, like you quite rightly said. and Michael escapes, and he just goes on a needless rampage, killing anyone in sight. There's no fun in that. There's not, and I give it 3 stars when it first came out because I was seduced by the Halloween. But when I rewatched it 2 weeks ago, it's 2 stars.
How many stars should you give it, Jim?
I'd give it 4.
I'm dying inside. I'm dying inside.
Can I ask you, Ross, if you had to reboot the series, if tomorrow John Carpenter says, all right, fuck David Gordon Green, we're giving all the rights to Ross Hughes, what would you do for a Halloween film if you were able to design one?
I would just do what I said earlier. I would make the job on point. I'll show. So you put me in the spot, I got to write now. I'm a Hollywood masterpiece in 5 minutes, right? I would first of all get rid of all the baggage. Like I said earlier, I would make a film called, Halloween Returns. I know it's a crap title, but it's better than Halloween Kills. And I would show the end of Halloween again, and I would show Michael Myers falling over, Dr. Loomis going down, and then I'd have the grass, the patch where he fell, he got the mark. I'd have that then go from dark to light, so it's the daylight. It'll be a couple of years past. So either be in Haddonfield, it's Halloween '85. Halloween is banned, but they decided to bring it back that year, something like that. It's set in the 80s, which is the craze of the moment. Let's be honest, and because of Stranger Things. Maybe Halloween 1985. It's been banned for 6 years in Haddonfield. The new mayor, like in Jaws, brings it back to get everyone back in. And you have all new characters. Laurie Strode is not involved because she's moved away. Donald Pleasance is in a conference somewhere, Dr. Loomis, so he can't get back. And you just have Michael turning up that night. You could have a good offer of rebuilding characters, new character arcs and stuff like that. And then can you imagine that moment when Michael arrives, after half hour, 35 minutes? I mean, it'd be such a cool moment. Then the Halloween music kicks in. Then you get the caption, Halloween, October the 31st. Then you have it. I'm not saying it work. It could be a 3 stars, but at least it's something different. You haven't got the Laurie Strode baggage. You haven't got this memory of the last 40 years. You've got a different timeline and something new and fresh in. And then it can take in any direction. It doesn't have to be Haddonfield. Michael Myers is not tied there. He could have vanished then. He could hit another town in a couple of years. He could be the ultimate boogeyman who's there and just turns up.
Yeah, I would watch that. What about you, Jim? Would you watch Rossi's Halloween sequel?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've watched most of the others apart from 6. So.
That was backhanded.
If he can give Halloween 2018 4 stars, he gave mine 5. But again, and I know I've interviewed him and I'm a bit biased. I mean, and I always keep on mentioning the films. And John, who's a writer on Horror Films, he told me last night he's watched the films. There's a guy out there who's directed 3 slasher films in the vein of Halloween called Malevolence. Give him the gig, Stephen Mina. Give him the gig and he will deliver a massively good Halloween film, I'm telling you. It's written for him.
I know there's some names that were floated around at one point. I think Adam Wingard's name was floated, presumably off Blair Witch, because we made Blair Witch cool again, so maybe you can make Halloween cool again.
Well, there's been a couple. I mean, there's been so many failed concepts over the last 10 years, since H2O and Halloween Resurrection. I mean, we're going to have a found footage one, first of all. But I think they were going to do it with Jason as well. They were going to do the one where he was all set to be electrocuted and he escapes. There's so much going on out there. There's so many good, cool ideas. But they obviously settled with bringing Laurie Strode back, which I know, and I love Laurie Strode, the character. But once you give her the perfect ending in H2O, there's no reason to bring her back. And this is the problem of Halloween 2018. Why am I sitting there watching something which they've done so well in 1988? Which you're quite right, David, and I think it's quite rude that they dismissed it, thinking it's a crap film. It wasn't a crap film when it came out. It was a massive box office success, and it did come out to 4 or 5 star reviews.
David Gordon Green's quite an interesting choice of him because you're looking at a guy whose background is mostly within comedy and stuff. Films like Pineapple Express, writing alongside the guy who did it's not one of the writers of The Fruit Fist Way.
Yes, he did You Highness as well, didn't he? That was a comedy.
Danny McBride, that's what I'm thinking of.
Danny McBride,
yeah. So it's a comedic group they have here. Like, this is the end as well. But at the same time, they sold the horror sequences at relatively face value. They sold them as horror scenes, and I thought that was very much to its credit.
But sorry, Jimmy, very quiet, but they also had script approval of John Carpenter. They send the script through. So John Carpenter saw this, who knows the character better than anyone. and thought this was going to work. But I don't know what Carpenter read that as fans, maybe it being harsh. I can understand the modern generation fans loving it, but as I say, people of my age who was brought up on the Halloween, it just left me cold. And the more I watch it, the more worse it gets. Jim?
Well, I mean, obviously you got to discount everything that's come after the first one, and that's not difficult because I personally didn't like to. Just couldn't go on with it. I thought it was dull. So I think it's a great continuation. I mean, obviously it's answered in the new one, but somewhere between Loomis shooting Michael and falling out the window and Halloween 2018 he's been apprehended again. So you got to kind of fill in the blanks. But yeah, I genuinely don't have an issue. It's its own thing. It's not following the rules that have been established since, the second film onwards. So I genuinely don't have any issue with what happens.
Fair enough. Anyone else got any other thoughts you want to bring in before you move on to what I think will be the most divisive film of the evening?
No, I'm fine. I think I've had enough of Halloween 2008. I can't wait to go to Halloween Kills, which is a total different film.
Okay, so Jim, anything else to speak now or forever hold your peace?
No, just I think you've already mentioned it. That cracking opening credit sequence with the pumpkin reverse decomposing. That really set the mood, didn't it?
Oh, actually, one last thing I want to bring in here is I quite liked it for using the true crime narrative throughout it. Like, that aspect of having the podcasters was quite a good way of, I suppose, building up the lore, building up the legacy, and quite a fresh way of acknowledging the first one. And at the same time, like, really acknowledging modern trends and how true crime documentaries, everyone loves them now. It's Making a Murderer or, like, Serial or, like, the Amanda Knox thing. Like, folks love these kinds of documentaries, and I liked the way that they went, all right, well, we're gonna do this to basically build up a backing story for Myers, to remind everyone who Myers is.
Yeah, it was basically the exposition, and it just turned out they were a couple of chumps that do a podcast.
Just like us.
Why do you think at the beginning when they pulled the mask out, the dogs were barking? Do they think, oh my God, he's showing the mask? Or do they think, shit, put it away, he's going to eat us?
Yes, that's like canon in my head.
Didn't want to be lunch.
Okay, folks, speaking of lunch, let's move on to the main course now. Let's move on to Halloween Kills.
You want to kill someone? Take me! Michael! I want to take his mask off and see the life leave his eyes.
Ross, you've been waiting for this. You hated this film, right?
I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was a masterpiece. I mean, I give it 5 stars. And where do you get that idea from? Oh, it's an absolute mess. I don't think I've ever been so bored in the cinema watching an Halloween film. Now, don't get me wrong, right? And we mentioned him a couple of times doing this podcast. If you replaced the burning house at the beginning with a summer camp and put a ski mask on Michael Myers, then you would have a fantastic Friday the 13th film. Because this is what Halloween Kills is. It's a Friday the 13th film, all but name. It's not a Halloween film. It's a mess. The plot doesn't move forward at all from the first one. Yep, I get the argument. It's the second part. The second part will struggle. But I'm sorry, but The Empire Strikes Back never struggled. They didn't. I know. Nothing moves on from the first one. It's just mindless bloodshed, helped along by the stupid, idiotic actions of the characters. And I mean idiotic. We talk about Halloween Resurrection. There's moments in this film, you just say, no, comedy right in. This is a comedy, guys. It's not a horror film. What teenager, right, will go, no, sorry, not teenager, a father, knowing that Michael Myers could be in that house, knocks the door, gives a thumbs up to his son, and then walks in.
They're not father and son. They're gay lovers.
Oh, gay lovers. No, they're not. No, the father and son. The father.
He doesn't have Big John, Little John.
No.
I forget his name.
Yeah, I can't remember now myself.
The girl's former boyfriend.
The girl's boyfriend. The father knocks the door, gives us thumbs up, say, "I'm going in, guys." Hang on, Michael Myers is there. Then you got a bunch of...
he was the one that had a brush
Come on,
with him.
Jim, don't defend
No,
it.
I'm just establishing who the character is. He is the one that had a brush with him in that flashback.
Yes,
and therefore
okay.
was
Right,
also a survivor.
I thought for a moment that he got thinking Big John. Little
He
John.
knocks the door, turns on, gives a thumbs up to the camera. "I'm fine, guys. I'm going in." No weapons, nothing at all.
He had a handgun on him, didn't he?
Oh, come on. And then these two... Sorry, I'm
One of the characters is an iron. Like, one of the women of the crowd was holding an iron at one point. You're like, she'll beat the shit out of Myers.
Tommy Doyle, who, he has seen Michael in action as a kid, right? He thinks the only way to stop Michael is to grab a baseball bat.
Yes, that's right.
I can go on and on and on. I mean, I'll go back to what I was about to say. Then you got towards the end, and as we race into the absolutely mind-blowing climax. Oh my God, guys, this was a masterpiece. I got to be honest with you, right? You got two teenagers who have seen Michael in action, think they could stop him all by himself by walking into a house. It's absolute nonsense. It really, really is. It's probably just as bad as Halloween Resurrection.
Okay.
This is going to get interesting, right? I acknowledge there's some quite big flaws with this film, right? The search party that are not a good search party. They just stick around the same building all night, right? That's stupid. A lot of it does rely on silly actions or just various plot devices. Like when I think you're talking about Big John and Little John earlier, is because they see, like, I think it's Big John sees the blood and then decides that the two of them should go in and fight in their house. And I thought, no, that's definitely not what you do. I agree that they didn't really advance the plot that much, and there were some pacing issues. But genuinely, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was dead good. For me, I thought the atmosphere of it was spot on. It captured the Halloween feel. I like that the flashback sequences were brilliant. It did make me want to see an actual flashback sequel since they captured the era so well.
Halloween 1985.
I liked the way that they're able to kind of build up the lore from the original by having the survivors of Myers. That was really interesting. And whilst I thought the mob narrative was kind of badly done, at the same time I think it was a good enough idea that I was willing to go with it. Like, I liked how you've got this kind of chaotic mess as people are trying to look for what they've got, the scapegoat, the inmate who looks absolutely nothing like Michael Myers. But like, I know this film was meant to come out last year, so this wasn't based upon the likes of the mob breaking into the White House or anything like that. But it reminded me of that. This kind of rage that they have, and a sort of, all right, well, this guy Tommy Doyle's giving us some easy answers here. Let's do what he wants because we're pissed and we're scared. I liked the way that they captured the mob mentality, even if the story was dragged out a lot.
Yeah.
How did it feel? Sorry, Jim, but I got to have to ask the question. How did it feel like an Halloween? You see, in what way did this feel like an Halloween film?
I don't know. I mean, when I say captured the Halloween atmosphere, I was more meaning like the celebration of Halloween, not the
right, thank goodness for that.
Like, in terms of the franchise, the only thing that really associated it with the original franchise, I guess, aside from the flashbacks, is the soundtrack. Although, by the way, I tell you what, I got oddly emotional when Loomis came on at the beginning. I was not expecting that. None of the reviews had mentioned it that I saw. And it's not CGI either. I shouldn't have...
No, it's not. Yes, it actually look alike.
Yeah, they got a mask for him. It's fantastic.
That blew my mind. I just assumed that they'd Rogue One it.
Yeah.
Just a guy with a green dotted cover over his head, and then filled it in, via computer. So I thought that was brilliant as it was, but then when I found out it was actual practical effects, I mean, Jesus Christ, that was really fucking good.
I also find, although it's not it's obviously not the same actor because we're using a guy from a Breakfast Club here, I got oddly emotional as well seeing Tommy Doyle and Laurie Strode being reunited in it. The bit where he's all like, "This time it's my turn to protect you,"
Yeah.
or whatever he says. Like, I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah, I
beautiful."
thought that was a good beat. You know, a lot of the hospital scenes were daft, but I think it was to show that mobs are idiots, basically. But there were moments in there that were really touching, I guess, considering, and that's one of them.
Touching.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Tommy in it was Tommy was a moron, but at the same time, he
Tommy
was.
Tommy was a moron. There's an open mic in a pub. Everyone is having a good time, and he gets up and spills it. You know.
Hey,
By the way, 40 years ago, half the town, even born 40 years ago, a madman escaped.
I mean,
come
at
on,
least
man.
he didn't go up and sing Mustang Sally. So you know, but, it was interesting because we were using that as a means of establishing, I guess, this is who the characters are in relation to Michael Myers. The problem is that the film manages to give the very, very thin backing story twice in the first act. And you're like, oh, this again. I mean, just in case the audience had forgotten the earlier explanation, we have Tommy tell the story. But yeah, I liked the way that they're combining characters we saw beforehand. Even if they use footage from Halloween 2, which technically is no longer canon, I like that they established a link between the characters from beforehand and also work the new dude into it. I was like, he was a kid that wasn't killed by Michael, which again doesn't really work because Michael kills a kid in Halloween 2018. But ignoring that lack of continuity, I thought it did quite a respectful job of managing to say, okay, well, this is the established lore and we're linking ourselves to it. We're piggybacking off it, basically.
The only reason the flashback worked, and yeah, it's the best part of the film, because it just reminds you of how good the original film was. That's the only reason that worked. Yeah, and I mean, 2021 is going to be this version of Halloween Kills is going to be a drinking game, because every single line, every 10 minutes was, "Hey, tonight's the night he's going to die." And then 10 minutes later, "Yeah, guys, he dies tonight." And then some random doctor, "Yes, you got a heart problem, but tonight he dies." every single character. You want about it earlier? About if Michael Myers talked, I was expecting that to happen. I expect him to go, "Tonight I don't die."
I thought it was going to be like Evil dies tonight, and Myers goes, "Shut the fuck up."
But that was the problem. I was sitting there in the cinema going, "My God, if I hear this line one more time," and then when Laurie and Blake and the sheriff was there, and they were sitting there going, "Tonight he dies." Well, not really, mate. You sit in a hospital bed. What are you going to do? You know, it's just, oh my God, will you shut up? It's just the same thing over and over and over. Recycle plot.
Well,
You loved it too, right, Jim?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'd say I enjoyed this as much as
For fish sake.
the previous one. But
Yeah,
you got to remember, there's 40 years between the first film and these. A person can change. So people can get more stabby in 40 years. You know?
I use a technical term.
Why is half these people so angry about what happened 40 years ago, by the way?
It's a mob mentality, isn't it?
You got doctors running around going, kill him.
They're on the piss, aren't they? They're all getting worked up into a frenzy, and you know there's local kids getting killed, so they're getting angry. And
that poor patient was like 3 foot tall. He looked as if he just escaped from Willy Wonka factory. He looks nothing like Michael Myers. He's got long hair, white gown on. Oh, it's
he's
Michael.
the only one they noticed on the news, because if you
Yeah, they
remember,
did show that.
he turned away when it showed Michael. So that little flimsy little bit of
Yeah, I'm with you,
what
Jim.
you
I
see
like
on the
that.
screen.
And the thing is, come on, like in the UK, we had people go off to attack a paediatrician's place, right? I can imagine that this would happen.
Yeah, I think it just does go to show how easily people are whipped up into a stupor like that, and you know that's just one aspect of what goes on. Like, I mean, you've got the flashbacks with Officer Hawkins, which I think his character's really good in this, and kind of grounds things a little bit as well. Like when he's in the hospital with Laurie, he's basically say it's not all about you. Who says this is all to do with you? And
Yes.
you know, it's as much about everyone else as it is Laurie's character. And there's quite a few little bits in there as well that I really enjoy. Like when they're in the park, when they're out looking for him in the car, and he gets them all one by. I thought that was brilliant, absolutely hilarious. There's the doctors and the two survivors. There was the nurse from the beginning of the original film, and it shadows that, doesn't it? He smacks his hand against the car window. The other girl runs off, and you got the nurse trying to shoot him as well. The other guy gets stabbed in the eyeball. That was great. And then you see the kids on the swings. It's like, I think this guy's a pervert. He keeps popping out from the side of the trees. That made me laugh. And then when Tommy Doyle comes and finds them all, like they're all on the roundabout or whatever, they're all wearing the silver shamrock masks. That was a neat little touch as well.
I did like the bit where Lindsay's hiding by the tree and Michael's walking across the bridge. But again, that's because that was more in tune with what Halloween should be about. I mean, that's the scary thing. She's hiding from him. She's scared. She knows that if he sees her, she's dead. Again, you don't have to rely on blood and guts to bring a good scare. I just feel as if David Gordon Green does not get what Halloween's all about. It's just mindless killing. I mean, how many times is Michael Myers? How many people? I think he kills 35 people in this film. 35 people. I think he kills more than Rambo and Rambo 2.
I agree that that sequence with Lindsay hiding was good, especially because it's a bit cheap because we remember Lindsay as a kid from the first one, and that I guess was like, oh no, I don't want her to die. The same thing with Tommy, but I think a lot of the goodwill for the character, the reason I was tolerating the character, was because we'd seen him as a kid previously. So we're like, all right, well, he's turned into a complete asshole as he's got older. But at the same time, there's also just something about how scary that moment would have been. But as you said, it wasn't just about Laurie. This film underlines that, hey, this is all about the effect that Myers has on the community. It's not about her story anymore. And I thought that was good. Maybe not fully realised, but I think it was good. I think the bit with Lindsay hiding as well was also quite Lord of the Rings. I enjoyed that whole sequence.
I got big Ring Wraith vibes from that.
That was also a bit of terrible planning, right? Where with the search party go, we want strength in numbers, and then split up.
Now I understand. You've got to be a Lord of the Rings fan to like Halloween Kills. Brilliant. It all ties in.
The hospital became like this sort of, let's all go there a bit for no real reason. I know that the reason that they've done that is because, practically speaking, it's cheaper to do that in one set than it is to go, all right, well, we're going to have a mob marching down the streets of Haddonfield with, fiery sticks and things like that. Now, that's really what the film should have been in some way. It's the story of Haddonfield, so I want to see them exploring Haddonfield. I want to see more of Haddonfield. And I did get second act frustration a little bit with the hospital. But I think the third act made up for that quite heavily, because I loved the sequence where, obviously, by the way, for anyone who's got this far in the podcast, you obviously know by now we're about to spoil the entire ending, so, sorry. But yeah, the bit where he's chasing Allison into the bit with the mob, and I was going, yes, as the mob then started going in to beat the shit out of him. Intellectually, I knew that there was no chance he was going to die, since this is part 2 of 3. But it was really quite exhilarating just watching the town, all these people who've been haunted by this character coming together and battering him.
I mean, it was good to see, in every film you've watched, even the now disregarded sequels, that's something everyone has wanted to see. What if they do get hold of him? Just shoot him in the head. He gets stabbed, he gets beaten, he gets shot, but he gets up.
Yeah, there's a supernatural element towards this now, and I think this is where they head into. I mean, they quite said this towards the end of the film, in which every kill he has, he transcends into this kind of entity, which is not, again, and I repeat myself, like them in Halloween Kills, tonight's the night he dies. That's not what Halloween's all about. I mean, as you quite rightly said, I was like, we'll shoot him in the head. We shot him everywhere else, end the year. And no man should get up from that. And then he done a Star Trek. You want to talk science fiction? somehow he transported himself onto the streets back into the bedroom.
Well, it was only a couple of roads away, weren't it?
How the heck is he going to get past everyone to
Yeah,
go?
Because this is the
Like,
same series where Loomis manages to walk across town because he sees a car near Michael Myers' house.
yeah, but I know he's wearing a William Shatner mask. But come on, he's not going to go, beam me up, Scotty, and all of a sudden he's in the bloody Michael Myers house. How did he get from A to B in the space of seconds? It's just another stupid written plot device. But again, the last 10 minutes, the last 5 minutes of the film was absolutely awesome. And again, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to watch Halloween Ends next year, because the last 5 minutes sort of made the watch worthwhile. Like you quite rightly said earlier, they should have done that in the first film.
Yeah. That righted the wrong for me.
Yes, yeah. But I did like how that was dark, and I was thinking, oh my God. And then he's got the cutscene with Laurie and Michael, and he's thinking, yeah, Halloween Ends, though, we're going to have the final confrontation. And what I do like about Halloween Ends, the fact they've announced now it's going to be 4 years later. So it's not going to be a direct continuation. So this could be a total different, again, vibe film. I think we've had the setup. I think we've had the bloodbath. So I got a funny feeling Halloween Ends. Jamie Curtis has already warned fans this is going to be a different film. So we might get lucky in this one, that we might get an actual Halloween film par 1978. The vibe of that. I hope. But he could kill 60 people in it.
It remains to be seen, obviously. I did like that they were talking a lot about him being stood in the window staring. And looking into that a bit more, was he looking out at the town or was he looking at his reflection? And then they worked that into the ending. I thought that was really good. And,
yeah, that was chilling.
I genuinely didn't see it coming. I mean, obviously something had to happen, but I was genuinely surprised it did, and I wasn't sure what to think at first. But yeah, looking at it, I was like, that's pretty great. And the whole, it did get a bit absurd at times. That whole Big John, Little John thing just seemed to come out of nowhere, and it made it was a good change from the hospital mob, at least, and it was quite amusing.
Yeah, I mean, with the hospital lot, the sort of theme of when you hunt a monster, you become a monster. It was like cracking a walnut with a sledgehammer or something like that. Like it was. And the way they like drive an innocent man to suicide and then don't really give too much of a shit afterwards.
You gotta hunt the monster. They don't hunt. They just stand around talking about it. He's gotta die tonight. He's gotta die tonight. Well, do something then. You should be standing around for the last half hour. The poor man has already killed 30 people outside.
Well, I mean,
he's doing a bench chamber. He's gone shopping and getting a couple of cans.
At least they do originally go out, and then they only return to the hospital because they've obviously found that little massacre at the park, and obviously they're confused as to who Michael actually is, and they're chasing Gollum around the hospital. So back to the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, you're right. There is a parallel.
It's a connection. Oh God!
The other scene that worked for me was when Laurie is she got that dude beside her in the other bed, and they're like talking about, oh yeah, when we were younger. There's just something quite sad about the kind of, I guess, the youth that Laurie had stolen from her by this time. It seems like she was a regular teenager, kind of insecure about the whole thing. She reflects on, yes, good old Ben Tramer. And then it makes the whole thing quite sad that she didn't get to have this normal life.
Yeah.
Since then, her entire life's been defined by this guy, right? And, we know from the first one she's had multiple divorces and stuff like that. She's obviously got a drink problem. She's not living her best life. Things aren't going well here. And that just little reminder that she was once a regular teenager wearing regular teenager things, I thought that was really sad.
As I said before, like Hawkins seems to ground everything when he's about. I mean, obviously the flashbacks not quite as ground level as the rest of it, but he seems to keep everyone's feet on the ground when he's around, and adds a little bit of pathos to it, I suppose. Like, because otherwise everyone just is kind of making it all about them, aren't they? But it's nice to see them, reminisce, and it's not all about that one thing. So yeah, it does add a nice little element to it.
what do we think of the beginning bit? Now, in a bit of phony outrage, I've seen people say, like, oh, they're trying to ban Halloween killing the firemen. You're like, less than 100 people have signed that petition despite international news coverage. Like, no one's trying to ban Halloween kills here, right? But the bit where he suddenly goes all Jedi Knight and takes, it's like 3 or 4 of them here, like, within the course of about 10 seconds. Like, I guess that wasn't saying, all right, Luke Myers, he's fucking serious in this one. And like him maybe emerging from a burning building, in the event the film was better received, and I think that would be quite an iconic image. But I mean, this film has not generally been well received by the fan base. I'm actually really surprised here if this is 2 against 1 of 2 of us liking it and Ross not liking it. Take any other collection of 3 horror fans. And I think this would be 3 people saying it's shit.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm glad you got something out of it, both of you. But I think it depends on he loves the franchise. I mean, Jim has already said the Friday the 13th is, the one for him, and I can understand why he likes Halloween Kills because it's basically a Jason film all in name. But if you're a Halloween fanatic who's been brought up in the sequels, who absolutely loves Michael Myers, and what you see in front of you is just totally, totally wrong. There's just the needless. I mean, the thing that got me was the end where the poor boyfriend dies. Just randomly. The way he kills them, he goes down the stairs, breaks the neck. It's just that's not Myers. This you can laugh, Jim. It's not. And he's walking down the stairs and thinking, "Oh my God, this is just." You should never be bored with a Halloween film. I'm not bored watching Halloween 5. I'm not bored watching Halloween 6 because there's a naffness to it, there's a stupidness to it, but it's enjoyable. This is why I love Jason Lives, because it's such a stupid film. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time. But Halloween Kills is so boring. And I watched it twice now. I watched it in the cinema and I watched it again. I went to the cinema again last night to watch it again. I waited for this podcast and it was hell of a lot worse second time.
Oh, really?
And I watched it with more people in there and I didn't get anyone whooping and cheering. It was just a flat atmosphere. Honestly, there was no one whooping. There was no one going, ooh, ooh, ooh. There was nothing. The only bit of excitement people got, and I felt the same, was the final kill when Carmen died. Because I like Jim, I wasn't expecting that. Because the rumours we were hearing in Holocaust films was the film ends suddenly. That's the rumours are coming through before the film was released. And that people are going to be annoyed that it just ends. So I'm expecting just a shot of Michael walking down the street and doof to be continued. So to have that kind of gut-a-punch ending, which I didn't expect, was brilliant.
Yeah, I heard it's not meant to be another ending of a DVD or something, or the Blu-ray, I should say. It's not going to be. I think there's another ending that was recorded that they changed because of how they intend to start Part 3. Which to me implies that although Part 3 is doing a time jump, we still got a bit more from Part 2 to see.
What, are they still hanging around the hospital?
But why be hanging around? Like, we'll be taking in Karen or something like that.
4 years later, they still standing there. Be ready to go, boys. He should have died 4 years ago, but today he dies.
When Tommy Doyle died, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to miss the character as such, but it was a shame because he was, like Laurie, he was a victim of the whole thing. His entire life was ruined by this one night. His entire life was defined by this one night.
I can understand Laurie, but Tommy met him twice and... he was never put a threat with Michael, was he?
I think just being around that sort of violence, knowing that people died on the night when you were threatened would be terrible for you. Without going into specifics, there's people that I know who weren't directly involved in. In fact, I would say the Dunblane school shooting, for instance, right? I know someone who went to that school. They were not present on the day. But at the same time, like, the trauma that they had afterwards of dealing with that, something violent happened near them. So I was able to, I don't think it was necessarily totally well done in the way they handled the character. And I think at points Tommy was a bit too buffoonish and also full of his own legend, like that bit at the karaoke bar. Whereas I thought, this is probably a guy who, that was for the audience, that was not for the character, that sequence. This is a guy who probably would not be talking about what happened to him. And yet, they had to tell the audience that this is Tommy Doyle. So you had this awkward bit of him giving his own backing story as part of an open mic night. But I think the idea, though, of growing up around something that's that defining for your community, I think that would fuck with you a lot.
Granted, I was just wondering. I was watching it, thinking, well, would it really affect someone, who was a young child at the time, and then obviously, the man's been locked up for 40 years, and logically in life, if he escaped, he'd get in a car and fuck out of him, wouldn't you? We wouldn't go hunting for him, and
yeah, because I suppose it's giving quite an interesting version of the way people deal with trauma there, because they all stuck around Haddonfield. Like, Haddonfield's just in the middle of nowhere, and the thing is, if you're doing a film where the sequel's set in the 1980s and you're bringing back recurring characters, there's less of an expectation of moving home. There's less of an expectation that you'll necessarily up and move city. Whereas I think nowadays, if they're saying, okay, well, the characters are still there 40 years later and they're still living in this small town, even though they don't really have to, I think of that for me just is a way of showing the preoccupation they have. That they're like, we're not leaving here because if we leave, Myers wins, essentially.
Right. I would get the shit out of it. I would have got in the car and gone.
Oh, same. Like, no, I just fucked off. I just got fucked off to LA or something, right? But or I'm going to hang around Crystal Lake for this nice fair. But
Yeah.
a very unfortunate move. But yeah, I think like for me that spoke volumes about the characters that this lot, they're still there. They're still hanging out with each other. Do you imagine that for Tommy and Lindsay, they've had to work this shit out between them for decades, basically. And so for me, the idea they're still there really worked. To me, seeing them back again really worked. And it did do a nice job of saying this isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a town tragedy. It was a good film, but I just wish parts of it had been done slightly better.
You two need to watch it again, and I have another opinion, because I couldn't see nothing good about this film, and it's quite strange to see the opinion changing. As you quite rightly said, it started off really high, there's a lot of praise towards it, but as the weeks go on by, people are having second watches and they begin to see the many, many flaws that this film is offering, and to me, it's a very, very weak and very disappointing sequel. I got to be honest. The problem is the issues of 2018 carry over to this one and just makes it bigger.
How many stars would you give this one then? Because I've not read your review yet, although I now will.
I think I give it 2.5 stars, which is not too bad, honestly. But if I could look back now, I give it 2 stars. I knocked that little off.
Jim, what about yourself?
I'd give it a 4.
Oh, for goodness sake, I give up.
You know what?
Where's my wine?
I'm pondering, it's either 3.5 or 4. I liked it more than 2018, largely for reasons I just outlined. It was a far more interesting set of character dynamics. I think Michael didn't feel like an underdog. He felt a lot more dangerous. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it's probably more 3.5 because I don't think David Gordon Green's very good at building suspense.
You dread to think what's going to happen in the Exorcist films, which he's doing next.
Oh, shit, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's very good at building suspense. I think he's shown himself as a director who can do more than comedy. And some of the horror scenes are quite good, the ones that are sold at face value. It's just maybe it's not actually. Maybe it's not about the suspense. Maybe the staging's fine. Maybe it's just the characters that I don't like.
It could be because it did seem like some of the characters did seem a bit too silly. Like again, going back to the Big John, Little John characters. Normally, when someone's creeping around the house trying to make sure there's no one going to jump out and stab them, they wouldn't be shouting each other's names to each other for the entirety of that, would they? Just silly little things like that, which I think was still good, just not in a horror sense. I thought it was a very fun film. There's very few films that are genuinely scary these days. I wasn't expecting this one to be scary. There's a couple of jumps in it, but well, I took one of my kids with me and she shot herself a couple of times, so that would be
the only proper jump I saw was when Gollum threw himself off the bloody hospital thing.
Out of curiosity, did your daughter like a film? Has she seen all the other ones?
I don't know. I know she's seen, well, because we went to see the original one that played before 2018. So we watched those two. I think she might have seen a couple of other sequels, but no, I think these ones are probably the main experience she had with it.
Yeah, because with that one, it was very much playing to the legacy. Like, I mean, I was watching it as someone who was emotionally invested in the adults because I'd seen them as kids. I don't know that slasher-style films necessarily be my bag if I were young right now. And I think that's more just because you don't really get them now. Like, I mean, we're of the generation where you like, I got into slasher films largely through seeing Scream.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got and worked my way backwards and then rewatched Scream and appreciated how good it was. And
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, like we grew up in videotape era, didn't we? Really,
Yeah.
where like these were the films you had to see. Like your friends in the playground would tell you about them, and you think that's wow, that sounds like the wildest, scariest thing I've ever heard of. You've got to find out. I mean, I watched Halloween for the first time when I was probably about 13 on a black and white tuner TV when they were doing some scary movie special on BBC or something like that, and you're scared because of its reputation rather than what you're watching. And, I think that was the thing for us back then. My friend saw this on video and said it's the scariest thing ever. And like it killed 7 people when they were watching it.
yeah, because I think something that's, I guess, different about consuming media nowadays is in the age of streaming. If this goes, whether this isn't just about movies, I guess I'd apply this to music especially, actually. In the days of streaming, you can kind of curate your own taste in a way that we didn't really, because we're of the era where you inherit things. You go, okay, well, like I was initiated to horror by my older brother, who's not even much of a horror fan, seeing some of his VHSs. I got into music through my parents and my older brother. I got into the sort of bands that they like. My older brother's like, oh yeah, here's some Oasis and Nirvana and stuff like that. Whereas if I were a teenager right now, or younger even, if I were like 10 years old right now and I was trying to get into music, you just go on Spotify and look up one of the playlists. I think it'd be a very different relationship you have with the media you consume. So I think when it comes to stuff like watching Halloween, the time, I would have seen Halloween probably when I was about 15. So I would have been 15 in 2002. Now, the gap between Halloween and 2002 would be, 24 years, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think, someone in my age in 2002 watching Halloween, it's probably more typical than someone who's 15 now watching a film from 2002. And I think part of it's just because we've got young people now with such easy access to a lot of material.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, my kids have got access to loads of different streaming services. We've got Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, all that. So you just think you think back to when you're at that age and the things you could have watched. I mean, they've got stuff like Hellraiser and the Brood on Amazon Prime. And it turns out they're watching fucking Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares on there. I've never been so disappointed.
We sound like such a bunch of boomers here.
No, but it's true. But it's true. All the new generation misses out on this. I mean, when I was a kid, it was a Friday night. The Friday night film on BBC was always a horror, and you'd watch that. It could be a Hammer horror. It could be one of the modern ones. It could be Halloween even, and you just sit there knowing you have to watch this now because the next time you watch it probably be in 2 or 3 years time, unless you're lucky enough to have it in VHS.
Oh yeah, the amount of films I taped off the telly on a Friday and Saturday night just because they sounded cool. But
that's what made the thrill of it. I mean, I always remembered. I think it was Christmas 1988, and the big film on BBC was Batman. No, it is 1982. Sorry, it came out in 1989, and oh my god, even though I'd seen it, that was a big major thing. You don't even get that excitement now because everything, like you said, is on Netflix. It's quite sad, really, and it's only going to get worse because you can see it happening now. Cinema releases now are coming out 30 days after. To rent on, that is the future, sadly. I mean, cinemas are dying art. But when you're going back to the original conversation you said about the slasher films, there must be a market for it, David. I know even for the new generation because, Myers, Halloween himself and Michael Myers' return was born on the fact of Pennywise's success because it was so massive. All of a sudden, let's get Halloween. I mean, it's not a lot. Once Jason's legal trial has been sorted, no doubt he'll rise from his watery grave in Camp Crystal Lake. And there's no question we're going to have another Nightmare on Elm Street film. So these characters, no matter what, is not going to die. Halloween ends. It'll end next year. Be back in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
These boogeymen don't die. Simple as. Because they're such iconic characters.
Something that really fucks me off, actually, with the way that they market these films, where before Halloween Kills came out, we already knew there's a third one. and now before Halloween Ends comes out, we already know there's probably going to be a fourth one.
Yeah.
So they really take the suspense out of their own releases. I mean, don't be wrong. Like, I agree that there will always be a market here, and when I'm saying that I think something's a bit lost with streaming, it's not really a bad thing in a bad thing way, because I think it means that people grow up with much more of a sense of their own sort of individuality in what they like, because they can curate it more. But at the same time, I think it's. I sort of hope that some of the older films don't get too lost in the mix.
Well, I guess I kind of wish streaming had a little bit more of an impact, because when I went on Saturday night, it was fucking rammed. So I love it when I'm practically the only one in there and I've got the place to myself.
See, this is what it is. This is weird kind of cognitive dissonance folks like myself and Jim have of going, I really want cinema to succeed, but I want nobody to be there when I go.
He wants to be the only one.
I want cinema to succeed. I want cinema to succeed, so I can go there
Just
and
not
watch
on
a
the
film.
day I'm going.
Oh, by the way, one other thing I just want to bring up before we move on to our list, right, is something that the new film did when, you know, the bit where he copies the photo of Big John and Little John with their death position, he puts their bodies to mimic the picture, right? That was like, I like this as a return of trickster Myers, because Myers has always had this kind of flair for the dramatic. Like, in the first movie, we were meant to buy that he hauled a gravestone across town. You know? It's like something that never made sense to me about Jason was the way that Jason ties up bodies to, like, fall out, right? It's like, that doesn't make any sense Jason would do that. But it does make sense Myers does this. Because Myers just loves, like, you know, like having a bit of a prank. Where, like, he set up this bit, like, Laurie comes in, you got the gravestone there, and then you've got, like, a body comes flying out, and she, swinging. She jumps, and then, like, you know, he's also, like, dressing up in the ghost outfit where he's putting all the wee glasses on his face. Like, what are the other kind of, like, weird little prank bits, like, idiosyncrasies he has? Because, like, I know that he does a few of these in the series, just strange things.
Yeah, that's why the bit in the park just felt, you know, normal, I guess, in you know, under the whole grand scheme of things. Like, you know, he's got them all sat on the roundabout with the masks on and stuff. So, that, yeah, it's just these little ticks that add a bit of fun to it, I suppose.
I mean,
the best prank he pulls off is dressing up another harmless man in his clothes and walk away. That's the best thing, like in Halloween Resurrection. Let's change clothes, put the mask on him, and walk away, and everyone pretend it's him. Yep, that's the greatest prank of them all. I'll be back a year later, boys.
Giving me stomach cramps.
Yeah.
Off this Halloween extravaganza, I have looked up a list from ScreenRant.com, and this list is called 10 excellent horror movies set around Halloween that don't star Michael Myers. So, we have 10 horrors set at Halloween which Michael Myers does not feature in.
Monster
what do you
House.
think they are? Monster House, you reckon? What do you reckon?
It's got to be one of them.
Trick or Treat.
Trick or Treat is on there. Monster House is not on there.
What? That's like,
What?
That is...
Oh, that's disgusting.
Like that film in its entirety just captures the vibe of this time of year. It's so good, but yeah, fair enough.
Monster House is more of a Halloween film than Halloween Kills.
I'm gonna hand in my horror cult films card, my Ascus, but I generally don't think I've seen Monster House. Is that not like a? Is that a kids?
What?
Film? Is that a kids film?
Yeah.
But it's not a kids film.
My
You put that on for the you put it on for the kid, and they scared you. They can watch Halloween Kills. You put Monster House on, and they won't sleep for 4 days. It's really good. Honestly, it's really good, David. It's brilliant. I watch that every Halloween.
It is, but no, it's not on the list. Trick or Treat is on the list, however, which I thought was really good.
Monster Squad, is that on there?
Monster
is that set
Squad
on
is
Halloween?
It's not on the list. I don't know if it's set in Halloween. But
I can't remember now.
Guess a fun wee story about Trick or Treat was I was at the premiere for Alien Covenant, right? And Brian Cox was there. The actor Brian Cox, of course, of Succession fame, as opposed to the physicist. And my brother knows Brian Cox, so he introduced the two of us, right? And I was like, I love your work in Deadwood. Right? If we started talking about horror a bit, and I mentioned, oh, yeah, I remember some of your horror films. You were really good in Trick or Treat. And, like, he did a double take. So this is not a film people mentioned to Brian Cox. Like, it's like, oh, no one... we don't talk about that one. Like, in a way that he was glad I had. He was really big on the Autopsy of Jane Doe, because he just finished that. He was really big on that one, like saying it was one of his favourite things he'd ever done. Probably because he's got a starring role in it. But yeah, I like Trick or Treat a lot. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Mm. Yeah, that's the three different stories, isn't it?
The anthology.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that.
There's also another Trick or Treat film as well from the 80s. Is that on
that
there?
is not on there. Some of
Hocus Pocus has got to be on there.
Hocus Pocus is not on there.
Wow.
No, it's horror, not horrible.
And one of these is a horror, but it's stretching it a little bit to call it a horror.
Charlie Brown, Pumpkin.
What?
Hubie Halloween.
Charlie Brown, Pumpkin.
Charlie Brown.
Yeah, Pumpkin Hunt, something like that it's called, isn't it? Happy Halloween, Charlie Brown. I don't know. Tell me.
Let's go through this list. Number 10, Season of the Witch, Halloween 3. Which Myers does technically appear because he appears in one frame. But it's a good film. I'm willing to go with it. Number 9, Trick or Treat. Number 8, Haunt from 2019. I've seen this film.
Why?
Did you guys seen this? It's the one that's like...
yeah, but I won't classify as Halloween.
It's set on Halloween. I mean, that's... like because we're going to like one of the sort of Halloween haunted house attractions in the States. What I will say is... I don't remember the film that well, but there's one that does stick with me. The bit where the lead punches one of the guys in the mask, and as you get hit, it's a realistic response. You get punched in the face and go, oh, fuck. That's my main memory of it. Oh, and a slightly goofy bit towards the end. But
what about E.T.? That scared the shit out of me when I was 3 years old.
E.T. is not on here.
I just thought of one. It's got to be on there because if it's not, that list is full of bullshit. Right? It's the most underrated Halloween film for the last 20 years. Satan's Little Helper.
No, it's not on here.
Oh, that's bullshit. You seen that, guys?
I can't remember.
No, I don't think I've seen it.
A little kid befriends a Michael Myers. They go on trick or treating.
Oh, that sounds nice.
It's really, and honestly, if you Google and everything, the ratings are 5 stars. It's a little unknown film that came out, I think, 2007, and it was a perfect Halloween film. It's mental. It's a great laugh, and I think it's on Amazon to watch now for free as well. So seek it out, right?
Number 7, by the way, I can't believe neither of you mentioned this one. It's an anthology film, very possibly one of the best anthology films of all time. It's got Stephen King appearing in it.
Oh, Creepshow.
Yeah, Creepshow is number 7. Fantastic little movie, this one.
Where was that Halloween? What part of Halloween? Am I missing something?
Yeah, it's a wraparound story set at Halloween.
Oh, for goodness sake, we're clutching straws for there.
I was just thinking of Ted Danson buried at the beach.
You know what? Like, Stephen King, Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson, Ed Harris, they all appear in it, and that's quite a good cast for an anthology film.
Okay, there's a Friends episode set in Halloween. Is that number 5?
So number 6 is... I know that you guys will have seen this. Ross has definitely seen this. It's a werewolf film. It's a Canadian werewolf film, and we've got 2 women in it.
Oh, Ginger Snaps.
Ginger Snaps is number 6. I really enjoy Ginger Snaps. I think it does it's doing tried and tested grounds of a kind of puberty angle, but at the same time it's doing it in a way that I thought made it feel fresh.
It's my favourite werewolf film movie of all time. It's in my top 10 of all films of all time. I absolutely adore it. Every single thing of it is so underrated. And the sequel's not so bad either.
Did you watch Raw?
Yeah, they did actually.
Such a similar vibe to Ginger Snaps.
Yeah. That's a dark film.
Oh,
overall.
fuck, absolutely,
Oh,
yeah.
the French film.
Yeah.
I went on a diet for 5 days after.
That is a cracking film. I haven't seen Ginger Snaps, so.
Oh, that's free on Amazon as well.
Okay.
I think I'm on commission. I think I'm on commission tonight, boys.
They own everything else, so now. With Raw, by the way, I interviewed the director of Raw back in the day. It's one of the things when you live in London, you've got so many press opportunities to dry up when you move to northeast Scotland, where our choices are. You can speak to the guy who did Sonny Bean or the guy who did Redwood Massacre. So, if you're listening, by the way, David, you can come on our show. Anyway, when I was speaking to her, she walked in the room as me and some other people at Press Junket were chatting about the movie. They're saying that it was probably quite disappointing that it had the barf bags and this film was minging kind of vibe about it, because you think a lot of the people who'd really enjoy this film are not going to watch it because of that, and at the same time, a lot of the people who want to watch a big bloodthirsty film are not going to like what they see because it's not that. So I think it was terrible marketing for a really good horror drama. Anyway, number 5. Right, I don't know if anyone else has seen this one. It's got Christopher Lloyd in it playing a baddie.
Was it?
That's your rabbit.
I don't know if you guys watched I'm Not a Serial Killer.
Oh, what the hell? Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Oh, wait, I was at number 5. Monster House is not in it. Satan's Little Helper's not in it. But for goodness sake,
it's not one I would have chosen. But at the same time, it's a good film. I liked it. Christopher Lloyd's fantastic in it. The end.
It's a good film. It's a good film.
Really good. Right, Ross. Number 4 is a film that you used to go on about all the fucking time. It's a found footage horror film about some friends who open up a haunted house.
Oh.
Yeah, you got it.
Hell
House LLC.
Oh.
So this is number 4. I liked this one. I didn't see either of the sequels, but I thoroughly enjoyed Hell House LLC.
I didn't even realise it was set at Halloween.
Seriously?
Yeah, all the way through. Like, it's in America. This sort of we do a haunted house run. Like, this is huge stuff in the States. Doesn't. Like over here, we're a bit dodgy about walking into a stranger's property, which is quite weird considering in America they can have guns.
I love Hell House. I mean, that's the last film that proper scared me, and even my age, that bit with the clown on top of the stairs, and he looks and smiles at him. Oh my god, I jumped a flame in my brilliant film. Brilliant film.
Any good?
The second one's brilliant. The first 20 minutes is brilliant because they show YouTube clips of people visiting the house and what happens to them, and they do a really good take on Hitchhiker story, and that is outstanding. And then it falls into a bit the same trap as the first one. Still good though. The third one is a bit lesser because the impact of the first 2 films, you get to know the story more. But as for the trilogy, it's absolutely brilliant.
And number 3 here. Absolutely fantastic film, definitely a 5-star one. This is a science fiction horror. It's set during the 1980s, and it's a directorial debut of Richard Kelly.
Donnie Darko.
I really enjoyed this one. I think I like that it's on the list because the list is acknowledging that horror is quite a diverse genre.
Yeah.
And I think Donnie Darko is. I think it's a modern masterpiece. I think it's really good.
Yeah. I'm not going to disagree with that. It's the first time tonight we agreed on something, David. Well done.
Number 2, I did not like. So this is an Adam.
I am going to love this one.
Adam Wingard film set at Halloween. It's about yes.
That's the cracker. That is. I'm a big fan of that one. It's a cracking soundtrack for a start.
The soundtrack's good.
You're not a fan of the guest.
Style over substance. I thought it was okay. Like I was watching it going. I don't know, like a lot of that, like Adam Wingard stuff in general. I think it was more about like a feel, more about a vibe than I thought it was particularly good storytelling.
I'm getting quite worried about you. You give Urban Legend 4 stars, you give Halloween Kills 4 stars, and the guest is brilliant. It is. It's a fantastic film. Thanks, Jim.
And number 1, I've never watched this film yet, so I can't really say much about it to like hype it up. But the film's called Murder Party.
I know what mean, but I've not seen it. I've seen plenty of adverts for it, but it just didn't look like my cup of tea. If I'm
Yeah,
honest.
it's a group of hipsters who decide to want to torture and kill someone on Halloween night. It's an act of artistic expression. When a lonely man shows up in a costume made out of cardboard, an actual murder party ensues. Fortunately for
Where did you find this list, by the way?
ScreenRant.com.
There's only one that's probably Halloween themed. Or there's no Monster House, there's no blinking Satan's Little Helper, there's nothing. There's no the Mortuary Collection, and that's like a Halloween film.
Mortuary Collection, yeah.
Yeah, see, yeah.
I
Thanks,
like that
David.
one. Is it set at Halloween?
More than the Guest.
The Guest is set at Halloween. They have like a dance party, a Halloween dance party at one point.
Oh, that's so why in the Karate Kid in it? Sorry.
Don't get me wrong. Like I find it weird. I find it weird the Guest made it on there, just because I also don't know if I call it a horror. But
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far with Donnie Darko either myself. But each to their own, I suppose.
yeah,
I can't remember the Halloween scene in Ginger Snap.
you know what? I don't recall it.
Like,
It's
yeah.
just thought.
Yeah, maybe, oh, wait, hang on. Yeah. The film ends at a Halloween party,
Oh God,
so it counts.
that's clutching.
It counts.
Oh, that's made me laugh.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty other ones they could have mentioned, like Pet Sematary. That's a Halloween film, isn't it?
That's another one.
Yeah, so Pet Sematary 2 is definitely Halloween. I'm not sure if the first one is.
Oh, yeah, that's why isn't that not on there? That's a belter.
Tale of Hallows Eve, is that the one? It's the bullying one from a few years ago. That was quite good.
Yeah, that was a good one. It was the kid eating the chocolate at the beginning,
that's
wasn't it?
right, yeah.
And yeah, that's really good. That is, yeah, that's a good one. I was thinking about it earlier as well. Never mind.
May was another one set at Halloween. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed May. I thought that was fantastic. Really sad. Really powerful stuff.
That's forgotten about over the years as well, and that's the one film I seem to have missed out the radar now, where people have totally neglected, which is quite sad, really, because that's really, really good.
I could be falsely remembering this, right? But was The Exorcist not set at Halloween? Because the book is. I can't remember if the film makes an issue out of it.
I can't remember, I gotta be honest with you. I was too busy watching the red spin round and spewing green soup.
Just seen this listed elsewhere. House 2, Halloween, is set at Halloween. So is Rob Zombie's 31. Poltergeist and The Changeling are both Halloween. And this one should have been on. Sinister also has one of the videotapes at Halloween. And frankly, I love Sinister, so that needs to be talked about more.
Oh God!
Hey, this is like when you were telling us that like two of the people in Something or Other gone on to play super villains in DC. One of them was fucking Smallville.
Come on, man. The end of Ginger Snap shows a tiny Halloween party, so it's the number 6 Halloween film of all time. Bloody hell.
So this is going to require some editing because we won't get us out by Halloween, and we've already gone for like 3 hours. So I'm going to cut this one in a moment. This has been an absolute blast, guys.
I know what happened there.
Anyone listening, do let us know what you think of Halloween Kills. Are you on me and Jim's team, or are you on Rossi's team? Of course, also do feel free to let us know any great films set at Halloween that we have not mentioned. Folks, I've had a fantastic night, and I hope that you have too. So, it's goodbye from me, and goodbye from these guys.
See ya.
Remember, guys, he dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight. Check out horrorcultfilms.co.uk. White Bat Audio.